Hey guys, and welcome to the North American Challenge Battles preview. In this video, we're going to have a look at the upcoming Challenge Battles, where the top 3 teams from the Challenger Series will play up against the bottom 3 Vainglory 8 teams in a semi-round robin style. Before we get started, let's look at the format for these Challenge Battles, as they are a little bit different than before. We will be using a semi-round robin format in which each Vainglory 8 team will play 1 series against each Challenger team, resulting in 9 total series. The 3 teams with the highest win percentage will earn the Vainglory 8 spots. So let's meet the teams, starting with NRG. NRG have Challenge Battles experience and come into this weekend with a small bit of momentum building from the Vainglory 8. Keep your eyes on player to watch Lightning T and all-star laner Juan Hernandez as they make big plays.
At the moment, looking to dodge out these Malice and Verdicts going in, but he just loses his life. Bit ambitious there.
Echo Fox's last 2 weeks have been their best performances of 2017. Erwin has had to bounce between jungle and lane as Super Shot subbed in for Yazuru, doing so with incredible impact in both positions. Erwin is breaking out as one of the best in the scene, and he will need to have a big performance this weekend.
Outrun Owen, but he cannot.
Hollywood Hammers finished split 1 in last place overall. But don't let the placement fool you. This team is a dangerous animal, cornered and with the capability of blossoming into something special at any minute. Keep your eyes on Starting All Over. If he's doing well, usually Hammers will be too.
Out walking away, but there's the Impale, and that should be him dead.
The 3rd place VIS Challenger Series team is Tribe Gaming. This team has talent in every position and is developing into a solid unit. At the moment, it appears their strength comes from mechanical outplays, so status finding comfort picks and engagements will be crucial for this squad.
Here's Pond now, and that's going to be a Vayne Crystal going over for the side of...
The number 2 VIS Challenger Series team is Rogue. Rogue can go blow for blow with any team they play this weekend. It will all come down to late game outplays for this team. Pawn the Original brings an aggressive, unique playstyle that complements the very meta play coming from Hammy and Evil. Don't be surprised to see their entrance or rejection from the Vainglory 8 come down to one big team fight. And of course, the 1st place North American Challenger Series team is Immortals. The fact that a team of this caliber was in the Challenger Series speaks volumes to how competitive the scene is right now. Dienzio stands on the shoulders of Concrete Captain Max Green and maybe the best jungler in the scene right now, T-Tigers. Join us at 1:30 p.m. Pacific, 21:30 British Standard Time this Saturday, July 22nd, as we begin the Challenge Battles. Broadcast will begin at the same time on Sunday as well. Some series will be played off stream. This has been your Challenge Battles preview. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.
Welcome back once again to the Vainglory 8 Challenge Battles. We're here in North America now, broadcasting from sunny California. We're ready to see who is going to be moving into the Vainglory 8 in North America. My name is Munchables, and I'm going to be joined once again by my 2 wonderful analysts, Tasty Bacon and Dragonborn. And now we move into arguably the stronger region. Bacon, how are we feeling about these matchups? A lot of hype teams here.
Yeah, this is going to be absolutely crazy. Every single team competing here today in North America has been in the Vainglory 8 thus far. So it's just redemption stories all across the board, as well as just teams that are trying to hold on to those spots that they've held for quite some time in some cases.
Yeah, and Dragonborn, you've watched these teams rise through the ranks in North America. You've got to be excited for some of these games.
Indeed, I have, and I am very excited. These are, arguably going to be really close matches across the board, with one exception possibly being Immortals. Immortals has been that team. They are the storyline here, clear favorites. So there's definitely a lot of hype around them, but overall, there's a lot of even matchups that I'm looking forward to seeing. The challengers can be a little tricky. We're not sure really how strong they are based on schedule, so we're definitely going to be able to see here tonight.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions up in the air. One of the questions for you guys at home might be, how is this tournament going to work? Well, we have our bottom 3 Vainglory 8 teams going against our top 3 Challenger teams. Each Vainglory 8 team will face all 3 of the Challenger teams, meaning there are up to 27 games across each best of 3 across the weekend. At the end of the weekend, when everyone has played everyone, it will be the teams with the highest win percentage that will move on into the Vainglory 8. In Europe, we've already seen a lot of upsets. We've seen the Challenger teams looking incredibly strong. Now moving into North America, there are definitely some huge names in amongst our Challenger rosters, but there's a lot of a lot of power in the 3 teams that have come from the Vainglory 8. A lot of underperforming rosters, so a huge amount of opportunity for them to get back on into this one as well. A lot on the line for a lot of players right here. And also, I gotta say, a huge amount of people that have like actually performed incredibly well in the past in the challenge battles. Like we've got Mixi, who's like this massive player. You've got Dienzio as well, who's previously won North America. Like there's a few names mixed in here that are massive, massive names already.
Yeah, and again, every single one has experience in the Vainglory 8. They've all been there. They've all been at the top level and have been competing. The 3 teams from the Challengers have been knocked out of the Vainglory 8 before. They know what this is like. There is familiarity here, so that the experience that they're bringing to the table, it's not really going to be an edge for one team or the other because they all have it.
Yeah, for sure. Let's take a look at the 3 Vainglory 8 teams that are going to be coming on into this one strong. Coming out of the pack of the Vainglory 8, it's going to be NRG, Echo Fox, and Hollywood Hammers. Now, all 3 of these teams, we've mentioned individual players, we've mentioned the mechanical skill on these squads, but all 3 of them, they've failed to really live up to those reputations. Or at least they failed to consistently live up to those reputations. Dragonborn, I mean, talk to me about these 3 teams. Is there one of these 3 that really stands out to you?
Well, I think really NRG might be the least underrated of these teams. I think they're really strong roster. When they play together, when they have that synergy, they can perform. Echo Fox's performance when they swapped out Yasuru for Super Shot really impressed me. A lot of people have been questioning, if Super Shot would get a chance to play because he really is a great player. And then, of course, Hammers, they're a team that's going kind of through a roster transition. They've really not found that chemistry with the current roster, starting all over. They did decide, instead of starting Poly, to start Archaic and Afro, and that was a decision that they felt really strongly about, and it just hasn't played out into any wins or any major victories other than one week where they did pick a win over Nova. So that's really going to be key to watch here. All these teams on paper, they're very good. If they could play together well, they're going to pick up some games. They may even pick up a few series, but we have seen overall they struggle.
Yeah, for sure. Let's take a look at our points. Obviously, no points on the board just yet, but you can see the 3 teams that are going to be contesting against our Vainglory 8 squads. It's going to be Immortals, Rogue, and Tribe Gaming. Now, all 3 of these teams have previously been in the Vainglory 8. I want to talk specifically about Immortals. This is, across both challenge battles, this is the team with the most hype, I think, easily.
Absolutely.
Right? This is a real powerhouse squad, to the point where I would argue they're a contender not just for Vainglory 8, but for like a high spot in Vainglory 8.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have been really high on this team. In other events, they're getting seeded, top 3, top 4. This is where Sweet Jenner's their coach, who's usually here with us, obviously working with his team to prepare for these challenge battles, but he feels they are a top team in North America. He always tells us how they're constantly able to beat other top teams when they scrim against them. So it's definitely a team that has a lot of hype, a lot of people expecting them to just sort of run through the challenge battles, make it into the Vainglory 8 without any problems.
Yeah, and I mean, you've been casting them a lot during this journey while they've been building this reputation. What is it about this team that makes them so strong, that makes everyone fear them in this way?
Well, they're very aggressive, very aggressive. We saw them play through much of the early rounds. Kashka going in, tearing up jungles, winning very quickly. And then, of course, when they switched over to playoffs, double ban draft came out. We saw a reduction in that kind of play, but still really aggressive. We saw T-Tigers playing a lot of Kestrel in the jungle, and just snowballing with this CP Kestrel very quickly. A lot of teams just not having answers. And these are good teams. Rogue, with Pond the Original, a team that actually was one of the few teams to body T-Tigers in the jungle. They still managed to out-farm them overall and then get more gold and win the game. And then, of course, we got Stasbake on Tribe, a team that just was not able to find much success against Immortals. And, Stasbake is a world-renowned jungler, and he's not really been able to do much damage to this team as well. They're just overall very, very strong, but it comes in with aggression and their team fighting play style. It's very, very good.
Yeah, so definitely a coordinated unit. Let's take a look at that unit as we bring up their roster and go through these 3 individual players, because this isn't, while it's an incredibly strong team, it's also 3 incredibly strong individuals. T-Tigers is a world-renowned jungler, one of the best junglers. You've got Dienzio and Carry, and then Max Green is kind of this, he's new to the scene. His first major games were in London, but he is absolutely a rising star.
Yeah, he has improved so much over the last few months or weeks, however long you want to go back, he has just been constantly improving. And it's just, again, getting to talk to Sweet Generous on a regular basis, he is always just praising Max Green for his ability to learn and how quickly he adjusts and picks up new things. Dienzio looks so much more motivated this season than he did last season, and a motivated Dienzio is one of the best laners in the world. And then, of course, T-Tigers, I mean, I don't even think we have to go into too much about him because he's just known for being one of the best junglers in the world, bar none. Last season was one of the key facets for Hammers being a top team contender, and then now Hammers, you can see where they are without him.
And we'll talk about Hammers later on today. Right now we need to talk about NRG, the opponents for Immortals. Bradley, Juan Hernandez, and Lightning T. Now, both Juan and Lightning T have been having a lot of the limelight across the weeks of the Vainglory 8. All three of the members on this team have the capacity to really step up and be highlight reel players, but they've been unable to do that consistently. They haven't been able to churn out these wins necessarily. I mean, Dragonborn, talk to me a little bit about why you feel they've ended up in the challenge battles here.
Well, I mean, they unfortunately just weren't able to transition these strong early game fights or strong early game leads to wins. They also, struggled a little bit against a really hard schedule as well. You can see going up against Cloud9 right here. I mean, this is a good team, but not necessarily quite up to that level of the top 2 or 3 teams in North America. NRG definitely came in to challengers, surprising a lot of people, actually knocking out Tribe to get into that spot. And honestly, I think that when you look at their games holistically, there's a lot of raw talent that's still there that just needs to play well. They have a good shot here. They're going up against some good teams, but I think that if they play well, they might be that one team out of these Vainglory 8 teams that probably has the most synergy going into this.
So what is the anticipation then going into this draft as we head towards this first game? Because from what I've heard, and I'm sure a lot of the viewers at home haven't necessarily seen Immortals necessarily. They have a lot of hype coming into it. A lot of it is based around the draft. Suijay, who is their coach, he's usually the draft guru on the Vainglory 8 streams. Is that going to be a huge factor coming in here? Or do they have weaknesses in the draft? Is there something that is exploitable by their opponents? There
isn't a whole lot because all of them have such deep hero pools and adapt to the meta very quickly. They're going to be a team that is very focused on just sticking to the meta, playing what's strong, and trying to counter their opponent's picks, trying to predict what they're going to do, and just counter it even before they make those picks, and just force their opponents to have to switch things up. But I don't really see too many holes in their draft. It's the only way to really beat Immortals is to actually outplay them once you're in game.
All right, we'll see how they're going to be able to take it to them. It's going to be a Baron as the first banned Dragonborn. Where do you anticipate the draft going from here?
Well, Grace Band coming out, that's smart. We talked about how Grumpjaw can be very dangerous on A side first pick, just because now the teams have become more accustomed to that pick. There's a lot of counters that can come out. So I actually think NRG will not pick the Grumpjaw. Lyra pick comes in here. It's a very safe pick.
Yeah, Lyra, always going to be a safe first pick, right? It's just a very comfortable one. Vox is going to beat the lock-in, and then Idris banned away. They're rattling through this draft, not messing around here.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's also just not many surprises. This is exactly what you expect from these two teams in this early portion of the draft. This is where things start to get interesting. The second ban of the second phase is really where you can start to try and shake things up a little bit. There's a lot of options here for NRG. Likely going to be wanting to take away something for him from T-Tigers. Obviously, you can't ban him out completely because the hero pools are just too deep, but maybe take the Koshko off the board. Exactly. And it's just so good to take that away, make sure that T-Tigers can't get that early game control.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised by that ban. I mean, if you've been watching Immortals, they prefer Kestrel or even maybe Samuel in this case. Koshka, these higher skill teams are really good at countering the Koshka more so than the lower tiers. So I'm a little surprised that I feel like NRG maybe just doesn't want to have to deal with that specific composition. They're on A side. They can actually take the Samuel here or the Kestrel if they choose. And honestly, you really want to get Lightning T on a hyper carry. This would be very important.
Yeah, having the hyper carries come out for both. I mean, Juan and Lightning T are both very strong with the hyper carries.
There's an argument for Samuel and Kestrel. We've seen Juan Hernandez take Kestrel weapon power in the lane multiple times. In fact, I would argue that's one of his most successful heroes himself. So there's a lot of denial available. But as you said before, the hero pools of Immortals are very deep.
Yeah, and Immortals picked Catherine here just for that very scenario, because they want to make sure that if the Kestrel comes out, or even the Samuel, it's a lot of poke, they're able to at least have a support that can reflect some of that damage. I'm curious to see if NRG will then think about not going Kestrel here and do something a little bit more creative here in the lane because of that Catherine.
The difficulty with doing that, though, is you then leave that Kestrel open for T-Tigers to pick up, and you're not really going to have a whole lot that can try and counter it. Obviously, the Samuel may look to do so just with the extra range, that range battle, but it is going to be the Kestrel picked up here, so Kestrel into the Catherine is usually something pretty strong, but again, this is taking away a lot of heroes from T-Tigers. Still has options, can still run the Glaive, although we don't typically see that out of the jungle anymore. Could go for the Batiste, and so that is going to be the option.
All right, so the Batiste going into the jungle versus the Samuel, and then Kestrel going weapon power in the lane up against that Vox. So how are we feeling about these compositions? It definitely doesn't feel like either team has a ridiculous advantage coming in, which is something we saw a lot over in Europe.
Each team has an advantage in their own ways in different aspects. Obviously, big range advantage for the side of NRG. They're going to have a huge range advantage, but there's a lot more burst and team fight potential, I think, from the composition that Immortals have, and that's something that they're definitely going to be looking to abuse as long as they can avoid getting poked and harassed by the members of NRG. When they go in, they're going to be able to find kills quickly.
So very much, stylistically, very different teams from these two squads then.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Immortals played a more cautionary draft at first, kind of allowed to see the hand of NRG. They knew the Samuel or Kestrel could come out, or both. So that Catherine pick was a way to kind of cement them as being ready to counter. And then, of course, Batiste, this is something we've only seen T-Tigers on a few times, and he's solid. He's able to perform, and I think that this is something that maybe they've been holding close to vest. Obviously, getting into the Vainglory 8 is very critical, and they tried not to reveal too many strats as they made that run.
All right, well, we'll see if they can make a run all the way into the Vainglory 8 right now. It's Immortals up against NRG, two North American powerhouses. Let us know on Twitter who you're going to be supporting going on into this first match of the day. Hashtag Vainglory 8. But it's time to head onto the Halcyon Fold for Immortals up against NRG.
Thank you very much, guys. On the desk, my name is George, joined by AJ. Here we are, AJ. NRG versus Immortals, their fight to stay in the VG8, or can it be Immortals coming through with a win to secure themselves a VG8 spot?
Yeah, it's a critical matchup for both of these teams, and with the new format that we are using for this season, every single matchup matters. We're going to see every single challenger team played by every single Vainglory 8 team. This is only the first hurdle, if you're looking at it from the side of Immortals. But if you're NRG, this is the first chance to really make a statement and say, hey, we're meant to be here. Looking more at the game we have at hand, though, this should be a pretty interesting one. Like we heard at the desk, the compositions are pretty different from both of these teams. And one thing that means is that when we see a team force an issue, the response really matters so much more, because you've got to deal with it just right. You're not trying to fight in the same situations as your opponents. Right now, NRG trying to go for some aggression here. It's quite interesting, seeing as I believe T-Tigers did actually get that camp.
Yeah, he got it all for himself. Drifting Dark over the wall, though. Dienzi going really low. The Sigil Snipe comes out from Bradley. And that'll be first blood to NRG. They're already coming out the gate. They're coming out the gate fast.
Yeah, and they're making a real statement here. I think a lot of people, even though NRG are the team currently sitting in the Vainglory 8, might make the assertion that Immortals are favorites here. Just based on the fact that they've got star-studded talent like Dienzio and T-Tigers, that they've been performing so dominantly for a while now. Also, Dienzio's been looking more on form than he has in the past. That's kind of critical as well, because he's definitely a player that has his ups and downs. But NRG coming in here right off the bat, making a play happen. This is something you can do with Kestrel, Samuel, Lyra. Samuel, Lyra has inherently good strength in the jungle as a pair, but then if you add Kestrel to the mix, they have a lot of burst damage that can come out of nowhere and can hit you from pretty far away. So if you're trying to move to safety and you're not taking the right route, or if you're being a bit greedy and you're going through the lane instead of maybe back behind your turret, something like that can happen. Immortals needs to be very careful about their pathing in this game.
Well, they do. Well, let's touch on these compositions a little bit more as the fight does break out with T-Tigers Arguably one of the strongest junglers at the moment. I mean, just taking a few pot shots from Lightning T. Lightning T going fairly low there. That's will hit them up, but the stun comes through from Catherine. Lightning T in a lot of trouble. T Tigers finds himself a kill. And now Max Green chasing Bradley. Bradley does make it out alive. Juan Hernandez is now pushed back in this lane. Ordain comes down. Active camo there. Bad Mojo does get stunned up, but Bradley's going to be there with the heals.
Yeah, that was really interesting, actually. You know, Samuel and Baptiste, sure, they can poke back and forth against each other. That's all fine. But the moment you actually commit to a proper fight, Baptiste is going to win that in the early game.
100%. I mean, Ordain is such a devastating ability if you can get it off on a Kestrel. She relies on that mobility and being able to stay in active camo, but if you manage to tag her just beforehand, it can be very hard for her to get out of the way, and it's very easy to flare her up as well. Now NRG, 3-man strong in that lane now. They are just going to push in. You got to say, T Tigers especially, he's got to be the one to kind of watch out for, because he is the, well, pegged as one of the top junglers right now in the scene. And Immortals, not a name we kind of think of in the challenge battles, coming up against NRG. We could have seen this match a couple of splits ago. It's always so interesting seeing these teams play each other once again.
For sure, and I mentioned kind of the storyline of D'Enzio being that he has ups and downs, right? But T Tigers is a player who has pretty much always seemed to perform very, very well. It was a big surprise, I think, to a lot of people when he decided to move from a top-tier team actually to a challenger team, you know, at the beginning of this split. But he seems to have found a good home. Here comes a fight. You can see a lot of damage right off the bat there down onto the captains.
Yeah, I mean, that combination of CC coming out from Immortals is pretty strong. You got the Ordained, and just leaves Catherine a nice easy time to run up to someone with that Merciless Pursuit and tag someone else. So there's a lot of follow-up CC, and then D'Enzio is kind of free on the backline to just kind of hit whoever he wants. So we'll see if that does come into effect later on as well. We are hitting that mark at that point in the game. We are 4 minutes in. Lightning T starting to get his items online. I can imagine that's going to be a Frostburn first. But, I mean, Immortals, they're doing exactly the same thing. D'Enzio started off with a Poison Shiv.
Yeah, I like the Poison Shiv a lot here. Great against Lyra, great against Samuel.
Juan Hernandez, a lot of trouble here, but they're actually trading this back quite heavily. Bright Bulwark does come out from NRG, so they're going to just back off. But Immortals, once again, just layering that CC is also important to their composition.
Yeah, layering CCs is a huge thing whenever you have the ability to do it, just because it shuts someone down for so much longer than really is even fair, right? Like, you balance the duration of a stun as a game designer around what's fair, and then if you get stunned like 3 times in a row, you're like, hold on a second, I'm pretty sure this wasn't on the cards. But yeah, very, very nice stuff there. I like the back and forth between these two teams. Neither one wants to give up their position here. Every game, as I said earlier, matters. Immortals, NRG, they both want to build momentum, as they are going to have to play against a ton more teams over the course of this weekend, playing a ton more matches. Talking about itemization, though, as you were doing a second ago here, yeah, the Poison Shiv, great. You know, Samuel, Lyra, they both have huge amounts of sustain. Samuel's is even more noticeable in the early game. Like, when he goes up and uses Corrupted Genius on someone in the early game, you can really see how much sustain it actually gives him. So I like the decision to go for that early on here. I also like that Lightning T went for the Frostburn. Baptiste has kind of an awkward area of effect. Like, area of effect's a wrong term. Area of influence, right? His range when it comes to the Bad Mojo is not the hugest. It's pretty long. But then when he's empowered, he kind of wants to be basic attacking you too. And if you slow him up and he can't get to you, he doesn't have mobility. So this actually is a pick that really can shut down some of the damage, even coming in from Immortals.
It looks like Immortals want to go. Every single second here, they know they're at a disadvantage when Bradley's around. They look like they just want to try and force the Bright Bulwark right now. There's Bad Mojo's coming out. They're starting to hurt. There's the Drifting Dart. There's so many stuns on Juan Hernandez. Ends up falling. Oblivion does end up going missing. Immortals' health bars are blinking. They are having to back off rather sharpish as Lightning T. He's got the damage. He's got the sustain. But that massive kill on Juan. We literally just talked about it, AJ. It was like, wow, look at that layering of CC. Bam. One's dead.
Absolutely. I'm actually a little surprised Lightning T didn't chase. He certainly had a lot of damage under his belt if he wanted to. But now with that pickup, this is a big opportunity for the side of Immortals. D'Enzio's got a tension bow on top of the Poison Shiv. This is a build we've talked about plenty in the past. It spikes really, really hard right now. You can do so much damage. You can stay in fights for a decent amount of time due to your sustain. NRG needs to be careful over the next couple of minutes. They really do. I think it's going to be big when the Lyra hits 6. You want to have that portal both to snappily engage onto someone like Batiste or Dienzio, but you also need to be able to get out of these situations that have been so punishing. Because Immortals, you know, if Catherine goes in and finds the stun, you're in a really bad spot. You need to just react and get out of there as quickly as possible. Catherine, of course, a great pick into Lyra, we used to see so much because of the fact that the Bright Bulwark does not shut her down in the same way. NRG, they've got plenty of ways to play around what Immortals is bringing to the table, but they need to make sure they're utilizing those. Oh boy, Juan!
Oh, hang on a minute. Juan is gonna get annihilated. Just absolutely liquidating under Immortals' pressure. My goodness, that wasn't even fair at this point. You're talking about fair game design, AJ. That doesn't seem fair at all. Immortals are just going to siege up this turret. However, they are taking a fair bit of damage from Lightning T. Tigers, in fact, one of the main predecessors of that damage. Nice vision from Shade. That's going to be a big block on the ultimate there from Catherine. One shot, one kill. It's going to strike something or other. Didn't even know if that even hit Tigers, but Immortals, they take one out and they get a lot of damage done with that first tier turret.
That was a really nice pick by Immortals. I love the fact that they're rotating together and utilizing what their comp is strong at, which in a lot of cases is the chain crowd control like you were mentioning. NRG, though, they need to be a bit more present and need to make sure they have good vision to allow for them to play around these kind of plays. You know they're going to happen. You know that Immortals wants to pick you up a little bit earlier on into the game, that they have the potential to, so you've got to account for that in the way that you are playing. On top of that, you know, we're starting to see just how insane it can be when you chain two silences together. They can't do anything during the silence, and then you follow up with a Fearsome Shade. That is just, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous how strong that is. It's not just, you know, you can have plenty of chained crowd control situations with just stuns, but this one shuts you down in more ways than a lot of those do. It's a very nice composition from Immortals.
Yeah, I was literally about to mention that, AJ. The silences are going to be massive. Wait for it, blast trap. As soon as those ripple out, T-Tigers, free damage, free Ordains. And then you've got to think about Bradley. His main disengage tool is that Bright Bulwark. Hasn't got that available to him. Immortals maybe looking for a little something here, but again, they're just going to back off. Lightning T, by the way, is level 10. Highest in the game right now. Ordained does go down, but NRG are more than safe under their turrets. And Minion Candy actually being popped from Bradley here. Really early prioritization in getting his minions up there, up to Immortals turret.
Yeah, I like the fact that NRG is pushing a lot here. This is something their comp does quite nicely. So long as they are really on the mark when it comes to things like a Crucible for a disengage. They have the ability to just push quite safely. They have a lot of bailout tools like the Arcane Passage, the Bright Bulwark. They have good range. Immortals are the one who have the onus on them to start a fight in that situation. Plus, although we might see that fight here.
The Vision Shade. There's the blast drum. There's the other silence. That massive bad mojo will take out two members. NRG looking scattered to the four winds at the moment. Juan Hernandez, Lightning T, didn't stand a chance. The go button was pressed, AJ, and Immortals find 2 kills.
Where was the Arcane Passage, right? I mean, this was the situation that we needed to see NRG react appropriately to, and honestly, it was pretty telegraphed. Catherine doesn't just blink on top of you. She needs to run at you before she can stun you. She needs to wind up a pretty long animation silence to do that. If you go for wait for it, you see the silence a while before it comes in. You need to know that in that moment, if any of the crowd control hits you, you're going to be chained and taken down. NRG had kind of a slow reaction to what happened there. As a result, they lose 2 people, even though they nearly killed Dienzio. They did like 90% of Dienzio's health in the first second or 2 seconds of that fight, but they were crowd controlled for the rest of the fight. You know, they couldn't do that remaining 10% at any point. Immortals have a huge lead off the back of that. Here comes another fight, though.
Well, they want to go for it again. Ordain is going to come out. Fearsome Shade's going to get blocked. Bad Mojo onto 3 members of NRG, and already Lightning T is going to fall. Now, Immortals maybe looking for a little something else here. Dienzio, the wait for, is going to silence up too. Bradley has nowhere to go. He falls down. That's a double kill now to T-Tigers. Juan Hernandez, the last member alive for NRG, is going to have to back off. Or, in fact, actually, Dienzio is going to find him and straight up kill him. Ace for Immortals, and my goodness, NRG just crumbling.
this is a team composition that's pretty fragile to falling behind as well. If you're NRG and you fall this far behind, what are your options for coming back? Well, you're not really going to be able to pick someone unless they are massively out of position, because you don't have a good amount of crowd control that doesn't require a ton of setup to actually land. Your best bet is Portal, Bright Bulwark, and oh, maybe I do enough damage. But that's, you know, Kestrel and Samuel, they are heroes who do tons of damage over the course of a longer fight. So when you're behind, one of the most common ways that a team will come back is they will find a pick, and they will translate that into an objective they ordinarily would not be able to contest or go for. But they don't have the tools for that. So what they need to do is really focus on kiting, focus on getting some vision down, knowing the angle at which their opponents are coming from, and getting into a position where, like, Drifting Dark has full effectiveness, right? That kind of situation, like right here.
Max Dream wants to go in again. Hang on, Ordained onto Bradley. He's caught in the middle of 3 members. Fearsome Shade's going to ripple through. T-Tigers takes 1 kill. Look at Dienzio now. Does dodge the Oblivion just slightly. Juan Hernandez will take another trip back to base. Dienzio's going to chase down Lightning T. And NRG's composition, it may be full of kiting potential, but they just can't kite quick enough. Immortals still ganging up, still trying to kill Lightning T. They're just going to surround him now. Dienzio going very low, but Immortals find yet another ace. That Crystal Sentry was nowhere to be found. We're 11-1, 13 minutes in, and it's looking all south now for NRG.
2 things could have changed the outcome of that last fight. It was very well played by Immortals. I love the fact that they actually staggered their CC instead of just straight up chaining, because that time Bradley actually did have a decent Crucible, at least, you know, assuming that all of it was going to come out at the same time. But we need to see Juan have his own reflex block. Like, what are those 2 potions doing in his inventory right now? Sure, maybe he just picked them up because he had a couple, you know, 50-50 gold or whatever, but that is not good enough at this point in the game. You need to have your own reflex block. There's too much crowd control. When it came down to it, and we had the situation where NRG could have come back, right? Juan and Lightning T kiting into a choke point situation, Dienzio isolated. That is the recipe for a comeback. But if you don't have a reflex block, if you can't survive the situation, if you can't sort of play with the right positioning because you have access to that bailout item, it's not going to work for you. Lightning T nearly made it happen by himself. If he had actually aimed the right way when they were diving under the turret, he easily could have killed Dienzio. He easily could have even got a second kill. But he only got 1 Malice and Verdict off during the Drifting Dark. So a couple of mistakes there, really punishing NRG. They've got a few opportunities to come back into the game so far, but they haven't necessarily been utilizing them to the fullest potential. And meanwhile, Immortals, they're adapting their play style to what NRG has to offer. They're staggering their crowd control. They're playing this just right.
Playing this absolutely perfectly to a T. Gold miner was taken earlier, so Immortals have got a lot of money in the bank. But that Kraken is going down very quickly. NRG have to react now, and they need to do something very fast. It's actually being dragged away here by Immortals. Nice positioning, and already
Good
actually
Lord.
it's going to turn this one. Oh my goodness, it's too much! No, you gotta
Oh,
stop,
man.
T-Tigers. This is too much for NRG to handle. That bad mojo, AJ, just executed all 3 of them on the spot. That was disgusting. Immortals are going to take the Kraken, and this just might be over by the 19-minute mark.
There are 2 options, right? If you're NRG, you can either kite or you can, like, jump on T-Tigers there. And what they did was they tried to have a poke war against them. Yeah, fine, you got Samuel Kestrel, but also T-Tigers has 3 items. And he's just going to out-poke you. He's got good sustain on top of everything else. It was a time to be decisive from NRG, and they simply weren't. They needed to, if they wanted to contest Kraken, commit. If they didn't want to contest Kraken, they could have just tried to poke it down, have a bit of an attrition battle, in their base, maybe try to get a turnaround whilst the enemy team's focusing on the turret. That was one option. The other option was, all right, let's see what happens. Let's throw something against the wall and see what sticks. They kind of went for the middle ground, and you can't afford to do that there. Immortals now pushing into the base with Kraken, 3 members very healthy, and plenty of items and infusions. NRG, this is their last opportunity. This could easily be Game Jaws.
Well, I'll tell you what will stick. That Kraken's damage to those turrets is just marching on down. NRG have got the poke. Can they make it work? That's the question. They're going to go straight on ham into Lightning T. And Blastrum is going to silence one hand. And it takes an 800 damage. Mojo to the face. And T Tigers is already going to be able to secure a kill. Bradley is going to go down next as well. Immortals are going to take game number 1. Lightning T rushes back to base. Immortals looking to dive him. But that Kraken is knocking at their doors. And NRG are going to lose this first game in this best of 3, and Immortals look absolutely unstoppable.
They really do. I mean, they had like that one moment early into the game where I believe Dienzio got picked up taking kind of poor pathing back to the lane, but aside from that, they didn't falter at any point, and they continued, as I said, to adapt throughout the game to the new things that NRG had to offer as their composition kind of grew through the game as well. So Immortals, look at them next game. If they get a strong draft like this with some good crowd control, pretty scared for NRG.
I'm already quite scared for them. We'll see what the analysts have to say. I mean, there's not too much of a game to break down. Immortals kind of crushed, but can NRG come back? We'll find out in a minute. You guys on the desk can take it away.
Well, I was a little bit worried that we were overhyping Immortals coming into this tournament, but the way that they dismantled NRG in this first game makes me think that maybe we were pretty accurate on this one. Immortals look nigh on flawless in that game.
Yeah, that was absolutely incredible. Not quite flawless, as Dienzio
As I say, nigh on.
had to go ahead and ruin that for them, but a really, really strong showing for this team. This is what we expect from Immortals, so not really any surprises. It was just business as usual for them, it feels.
I mean, Dragon Ball, what was it that got Immortals rolling like this? Because beyond that first kill, nothing went wrong for them.
Oh, incredible synergy here. This is a great example of this team fight starting when you'd see T Tigers put the Ordain down, and all of a sudden, all of the abilities, all the ultimates coming out. We saw the Blast Tremors, the Wafer, they all got paired together in perfect harmony. That's something that you just takes a lot of time to practice, and when it's effective, it's just decimating. Right here, you can see it. The Blast Tremor finishes it off. They did block it, but there's so much damage being stacked on top with the Fear, with the Tremor, and with the Vox dealing the Resonance. It just was too much to handle, and we saw almost in every single fight, we did see Immortals would pair up all of their abilities perfectly.
Yeah, and it's just like that pure lockdown for that amount of time. And then
it was massive.
I mean, the final fight where they are starting Kraken and then they just like turn around and just jump on them, that was the highlight of the entire game for me. I can't wait to see that replay. Well, I mean, Bacon, talk me through a couple of these fights.
Yeah, I mean, again, it was just all about just going in as a team. The moment they make the decision to go in, everyone is fully committed to the fight. There's no hesitation. There's no one person trying to move around to get to a crazy flank while the rest of the team are fighting. Nothing of the sort. It was just once Ordained went down, every single member rushed in and put down as much crowd control as they could. Target focus was on point. It was just really, again, all around incredibly well-played game.
This is that moment where, once again, all three ultimates go on through, just obliterate them.
Look at all the blocks that happen here. I mean, you cannot fault NRG for trying their best. They utilized the Crucible as best they could, but when you've got that much, abilities hitting you, this damage locked to all of those, it's just really too much to handle.
Yeah, you can block the crowd control all you want, but you just can't block all of that damage.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, that was just GG right there. It had been essentially game over for some time before then, but that solidified it.
And I think those fights really kind of prove a point that you need to spread out against that kind of composition. You can't afford to all three be hit by all of the ultimates. You have to spread out so that that combo cannot be effective. It's time to move into the next draft, okay? Time to get on into game 2. What is the expectation? Because it didn't feel like NRG's draft was bad that game. It didn't feel like Immortals came in with this huge draft advantage, but once we got into the game, the advantage seemed to just grow itself.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. It wasn't a bad draft from NRG. It was just Immortals being that dominant. I mean, this is something that we've seen, in TSM games, in Cloud9 games. When they face anyone other than each other, you just sort of expect it to go their way, regardless of what the draft is. So obviously, I expect Immortals to have another very solid draft. They come into these drafts with a very clear identity, a very clear idea of what they want to do. and it's so difficult to put them on anything that would be uncomfortable for them because of, again, really deep hero pools.
So what does the plan need to be for NRG coming in here? Is there a way that you can try and halt some of this momentum?
Well, you definitely would love to get a power pick, but on B side, that's going to be tough right out the gate. I think that with the Lyra ban here first, you're really in a tough position now. You're going to ban Grace, Baron's up. Dienzio's Baron performance has been unstoppable in the Challenger Series. He is undefeated. He's going to go with Vox, which I actually really kind of surprised by this. And I think this is Immortals maybe being a little bit tongue-in-cheek here, saying we can play anything, we can win with anything. And NRG doesn't take Baron here, though. This does now put them in an awkward position.
Yeah, especially because they're taking the Vox, allowing NRG to pick up Baron and then ban away the Idris. So that's another very big counter, although I don't even know if the Idris ban comes through. They're going to go for Kestrel, so all of a sudden Baron having a little bit less priority, and again, going to be in a situation where now Immortals, are they going to go ahead and ban it away this time around?
I think they are.
My question is that actually the correct decision not to pick Baron there, or is this Immortals playing mind games with NRG and NRG being like, okay, they've got a counter pick, we don't want to do this?
I think it is a little bit of a mind trick here, because they spooked NRG thinking like with just the Vox pick, you don't see enough of the draft to know that if there's got something in store for the Baron coming out of the jungle here. But the fact that Immortals is taking a lot of time on here is now interesting, because now they might actually be deciding, or they didn't first pick Baron, maybe we don't need to ban it.
But at the same time, it puts, actually, this is a really smart drafting from NRG, because it put Immortals into this spot where they had to choose, do they leave the Baron up or do they ban it? If they leave it up, NRG does not have to pick it here, because Baron there's chances of it being Baron and Vox on the same team are so minute that I don't think they really need to worry about it. So NRG can pick their captain here and then force Immortals to have to either pick a counter to Baron or deal with a Baron as that final pick. So I am very impressed with this draft from NRG coming through.
Yeah, really solid stuff coming out from NRG here. I'm curious to see what captain they do pick up if it is that. In fact, going for a Batiste because it's flexible. The Kestrel also flexible. Both of these picks can be maneuvered around in the draft. Look at this full-out aggression from Immortals. Not a moment of hesitation.
Yeah, this is a composition that Immortals have run quite a few times. Koshka Fortress. I've been wanting to see Fortress played more frequently for some time now. The current meta is all about aggression, getting in, doing tons of damage up front, and Fortress just enables you to do that so incredibly well, especially with a Koshka. They need to get something on the side of NRG that can deal with early aggression, and do they go for the captain? Do they go for a jungle or a laner? They have so much flexibility with the rest of their draft that they've got themselves set up to try and counter this. It's just going to be a matter of can they actually do it.
All right, so what is the final pick here? It's about to be locked in, Dragonborn, but Sky, what are your thoughts on the Sky pick?
Well, they're really trying to focus on the jungle invasion and to be in a position where they can outmaneuver it. Baron early is going to be a little bit slow and a little bit of a sitting duck, and so I think that the decision ultimately to forgo Baron completely was just they don't want to be put in a position where they get snowballed too hard by that Koshka. Sky has had a lot of success going into Immortals, actually going into that Koshka specifically. So I'm actually I'm on the fence here. I'd like to say I'd love what NRG's doing, but I haven't seen how that Sky Kestrel combo is going to work with them. And if they could pair it up well, Koshka is actually the lowest win rate hero for T Tigers. It's because I think a lot of these teams have figured it out a little bit, but when they get rolling, we haven't seen it paired up with the Fortress, and when they get rolling, there's really not much that can stop Immortals.
So an interesting thing about this draft from NRG, these are comfort picks for them. Lightning T is a very good Sky player. Juan Hernandez, really good on this Kestrel. So I feel like they just kind of took a step back and said, you know what? We're not going to be able to flat out outdraft Immortals. Let's just get what we feel we are personally best on and try and beat them in the gameplay just by having these comfort picks. So I like the idea that they've gone for there.
It's like instead of playing Immortals games and trying to beat them at it, let's play our own game, play to our strengths. We'll see if it's going to work out for them. Immortals currently 1-0 up, and NRG looking to even the score. Hashtag Vainglory8 is how you can get in touch on Twitter. Let us know who you're looking to win this one. But with that, it's time to head on into Game 2 and on to the Halcyon Fold.
Thanks, guys. My name is George, joined by AJ once again. NRG going more comfort pick orientated this time. You know, shaking off that last defeat, but Immortals coming in pretty strong. Dienzio's got his Vox once more, but T-Tiger's on Akoshka.
Yeah, I mean, this composition from Immortals, so we got to talk about it, because it is all-out aggression, as we mentioned on the desk. It is, I think, going to be very much about whether NRG can keep their cool, and after last game, after suffering such a brutal defeat, that might be kind of difficult. That being said, Bradley, he's got some cojones here, going very aggressive early on.
I was going to say, speaking of being brutal, that's exactly what Bradley's doing. Does use those boots actually to get a little bit of distance on T-Tigers. Max Green actually had to pop a potion there, I believe, in order to stay alive. Now T-Tiger's just whizzing through his jungle.
Yeah, I like the fact that Energy is being very aggressive here. T-Tigers does need to be careful, as he has been.
Yes, he does.
flanked.
He's going to leap on Bradley, though, and Max Green is on here to the side. Juan Hernandez decided, as soon as I hit level 2, I'm going to play T-Tigers at his own game and just invade him. But they are just going to back off. And T-Tiger's actually just going to go back to base and pick up an extra crystal bit.
Yeah, I mean, this might end up fine for T-Tigers. The thing you got to remember is that going back here, yeah, sure, you're losing pressure on the map, but you're also getting to buy a little bit faster. You're already level 2, so you're not falling that far behind in the levels, and you've got an additional crystal bit on your opponent now that there's no jungle shop up until 4 minutes. If T-Tigers wants to fight early, he might even be able to turn this into an advantage, but we'll see what happens, because I definitely think for the time being, it's difficult for Immortals to find that window. They don't have, you know, a lot of the abilities that they need to really commit to a fight just yet.
I mean, Immortals, that's exactly what they did last game, though, AJ. They committed to fights over and over and over again, just isolated Bradley or Lightning T. No, not Lightning T, because he was just left alone. They didn't want anything to do with him. They isolated Juan Hernandez and Bradley time and time again, took them out of the fight cleanly, and then it was just easy for Dienzio to back them up in that regard. Bradley actually getting jumped on here. Immortals once more try and go for this aggressive play in the lane. But with Juan Hernandez actually rotating down now from the base, they are going to have to just stay on their aggression just for the moment.
Energy's kind of conceded some of the advantage that they had accrued for themselves earlier on by not really having great pressure in the middle of the map for a little while. I get that they needed to shop. Part of the reason why is, you know, what I mentioned earlier on. But at the same time, giving away that middle treant is not great, obviously, because now Immortals, A, knows that they don't need to fight in the middle of the map if they don't want to. There's nothing that Energy can leverage there to make them feel like they have to. And they've now got the ability to just back up, take the rest of their camps, and kind of equalize. So that was actually a really nice rotation from Immortals, but also perhaps a little poorly timed from NRG. I think an argument could be made that only Juan needed to back up, and they maybe Lightning T rotates down once they realize what's going on. They just kind of try and burst him out, or maybe steal away the camp.
Exactly what T-Tigers wants to do. Creeping around in the bushes, but we'll get spotted out with that scout trap. It's always depressing, especially as casters, AJ, because we know where the traps are. We know where those scout traps are hiding, and you just see him trigger it ever so slightly. And if he was a couple of pixels down, he wouldn't have triggered it, and he wouldn't have been seen. But he knows that now, and we knew that beforehand. It's kind of sad, but hey, that's just how it goes. The nature of the beast.
Happens.
Speaking of beasts, Max Green, as soon as he hits that level 6 mark, you can imagine they're going to go all-out aggression. But at the moment, playing rather passive on this Fortress Captain.
Yeah, I don't mind this, though, as I said, because you got to remember as well, you're playing into a Batiste. Even though he's captain, he can be very devastating to deal with early on here. Plus, Juan Hernandez, after he gets his first item, is going to be really, really scary. And you can't always guarantee that when you pick a fight, it's going to be before he goes and buys. Because right now, he's pretty close. I'm assuming he might go for like a Frostburn. He's going to have that in 400 gold. If he had been in the jungle rather than the lane, he'd have it by now, based on this rotation, probably. So yeah, Immortals, there's this thing you can do in higher levels of play, especially where you kind of conceal how far through your item progression you are. And it makes it really difficult for the aggressive team to go in when they know you're on the brink and you could have access to something that they can't do.
Could have. It's like the mystery card up the magician's sleeve. Who is a bit of a magician. It's T-Tiger's in the jungle. Don't know how he does it. He's going to jump on someone. Yummy Candy Frenzy straight on the backline. Lightning T gets caught up. Dienzio with the follow-up damage. The Fountain does come out for the heal, and that's a definite rub from Juan Hernandez. Max Green has to exit down into that bottom mustache brush, and that could have been very explosive. Lightning T could have gone down there, but clutch comes in Bradley with that Fountain.
That death from above was absolutely disgusting. Really, really solid stuff there from Juan Hernandez. He actually made a smart path there. He was like, all right, I'm 6 now. I guess maybe their jungler's 6, right? So instead of going to the shop, picking up Frostburn, and then wanting to fight, he went straight to the lane, knowing that this is a window where Immortals had a huge power spike. And it was really good that he did. Had he not shown up, 1 kill for sure, maybe even 2, and definitely a lot of pressure on the turret as well, if not a rotation down to, for example, steal away some camps. So, yeah, sometimes you need to take the selfless path, and that's exactly what Juan Hernandez did there. He's like, my item is not as important as just making sure, like, even if I go to lane, there's no one there, right? I've still made the right decision because there could have been, and you just don't know.
I can just imagine him right now going, please, guys, I just want it back. I want to get my item, please. And they're like, no, we're going to stay because they're going to jump on us right now. Lightning T saw it coming. They did manage to avert the crisis for the moment. But now Juan Hernandez, he's level 7. He's pretty beefy on this Sky. Like you said, has picked up that Frost Burn. But what are Immortals going to do? Because Max Green isn't level 6 either yet. That's going to be their big engage tool. That attack of the pack is going to be crucial for Immortals to actually go for this engage. Speaking of engagement, straight onto Lightning T again. Death from above onto 2 people. It's going to stun him up. That was perfect from NRG. They trade 2 for 1. Dienzio, the last member alive. Bradley's just hacking him away with that scythe, but very, very low he went. And off the board he goes. Juan Hernandez picks up that kill, and that's an ace for NRG.
If you can play it as good as Juan Hernandez, and you're in solo queue, pick up Sky when you're against Koshka. Because so long as you're not the main target, and if you're the jungler, I mean, there's a decent chance you won't be, about 50-50, you can just shut that down, right? Like, everyone needs to pile onto the target that you've locked on, especially if it's like a fortress who's captain, right? Someone melee. And you can really just punish that kind of play with Death from Above. It does more damage than people realize, because most of the time, people don't sit in it, right? Like, it's pretty easy to just walk away from. I know that I'm just bad with it, so quite frequently I don't place it very well. But
I'm glad you admitted it, AJ. That's the main thing.
Yeah, I mean, you got to know what your weaknesses are if you want to improve, right? But I think that in the case of Juan Hernandez, they've been on point every single time. He's been saving them instead of, like, jumping the gun. It's very difficult for Immortals to deal with. There's no good answer. Like, Crucible is not a good answer to Death from Above. It only stops a bit of it.
That's not what they want. They want the whole Death from Above completely stopped. But that does involve actually erasing a Juan Hernandez from this game. Maybe they need to choose their targets a little bit more carefully then. That Yummy Cantic Frenzy could land straight on the Sky, and then they make their move from there. Speaking about making moves, though, Juan Hernandez is onto the side. Immortals looking like they want to go for him now. Max Green very low. Death from Above comes out, so does Attack of the Pack. Fountain not blown from Max Green just yet. That 4 to 5 health was enough for him to make it out alive. Although he is oozing green liquid, that always looks so strange on that skin.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so hang on. Let's refocus on some of the bigger picture here, because I do think it's worth noting. Immortals, they're the early game team, right? But they're falling behind right now. And part of the reason is that picking Koshka into a Baptiste and a Sky can be challenging. But part of the reason is that they're not really leveraging the right opportunities to fight. Here would be a good example of one. Death from Above was just burned. Like, that's a good window to go in. Your opponents are taking Goldmine, that's a good window to go in. But Dienzio had his focus set on getting farm in the back of the jungle. Not necessarily the worst thing in the world. You want him to be strong and have farm. But you also do need to capitalize on the opportunities presented to you, and that was definitely one. So Immortals, I think they weren't maybe expecting to run into so much resistance in the early game and be shut down so comprehensively. It's one thing to sort of theory craft it and be like, yeah, I mean, Batiste's good into Koshka, but how good can he be? Or same thing with Sky. In practice, it's just annihilating their engage attempts, though. They really need to look for creative opportunities, not just the obvious ones that you will have practiced game after game after game for your rotations, like, oh, I'm going to go to lane and initiate.
Well, let's harken back to actually what we talked about at the start of this game, in the fact that Immortals, yes, they've been playing also aggressive, but the comfort picks that NRG have actually picked up here, they're actually working out a storm now, and Immortals looking nowhere near as dominant in his last game, completely turning the tables. And if you covered up the nameplates, I think we'd say that NRG were looking like Immortals right now, and Immortals were looking like NRG, just going on the scoreline and where the game is at a whole right now. And NRG really coming back into this.
Even looking at the way they're playing, though, that's kind of the point I'm making, because Immortals are not... They did something great last game, which was they adapted to the sort of peaks and troughs that NRG's composition had and that their composition had. They're playing around things very smartly, including positioning. This game, I feel like they've got a very one-track mind going on right now. Like, they're just saying, all right, we're just going to pile on top of people. That's how Koshka Fortress works. And that's not how it needs to work here. Right? As I said before. NRG, on the other hand, they're like, in the early game, well, okay, like, what are you going to do against Batiste? So we're going to invade. Even though you're against Koshka Fortress, and that might scare some people. And then in the mid-game, they're like, all right, well, they have Koshka, so let's just keep Juan Hernandez near the team. They're doing what Immortals did last game, and actually playing very, very smart so far.
Oof, playing very smart, playing very aggressive. Immortals just halted up by that death from above. There's some shade did come out from Bradley as well, but didn't have too much of an effect. Matt Screen also popped the attack of the pack. Here comes the one-shot one kill. It is going to find DNZO. Now NRG looking for advantages here in terms of just kills or getting a lot of damage onto Immortals, which they're doing very well. Pushing forward for Barrage, chunking out Max Green. NRG still wants some of this. T-Tiger's on the side. It's going to find Lightning T, and Lightning T just solo zoom out completely. He's going to be matched with the Crystal Sentry, but look up there. Max Green does get ordained. And here comes Juan Hernandez just gunning and running down Immortals, but I think he stepped a little bit too far. Has to hop on that speed bike and run away.
That was a really interesting series of events. To begin with, it was a very decent engage from Immortals. They actually split better, so that it was kind of tough for Juan to make a decision about where to go for Death from Above. So that was good. Then Juan actually threw out kind of a weird Death from Above. It cut people off, but it didn't actually threaten to interrupt in like a hard engage, which I'm actually surprised Immortals did not go for. The chase was well played. I'm surprised Dienzio stuck around in the bush for so long, knowing that Bradley had the opportunity to buy a flare. As soon as a flare comes out, he's going to flare that bush. Juan, if he finds a basic attack, can use Surrey Strike to get into the fray. So you have to think about where you're standing. You need to be a bit further back just in case that comes out and you're not expecting it. Then the chase happens, and that would have been an ace, but Juan Hernandez, I think, like, out-mind gamed himself. He thought that Dienzio was going to, like, run away over the wall. So he actually Surrey Striked on the spot, which, arguable whether that's good or not. I mean, it stops you from getting too far out of position where your team can't help you. But he used forward barrage in the wrong direction. He has a bunch of cooldowns that he now can't follow with. Sure, NRG get a kill, but they overchase. It was pretty messy from both sides. But overall, I think we saw moments where both teams looked like they'd figured something out. But they just didn't necessarily execute, or they weren't necessarily all on the same page.
Well, NRG going for this gold miner now, just like it wants to get stolen. Fearsome Shade's actually going to come out and actually secure that for NRG. Nice use of the ultimate there by Bradley. Not something we actually usually see. Make sure everybody's feared up and Immortals cannot secure that gold miner. That was an extra 200 and something gold to all of NRG. Fountain pop there from Bradley. Not sure what that was about. They're going to jump on this one though. Lightning T on the back line. DNTO underneath the turret. Does pick up the kill. Juan Hernandez is going to get jumped on in the jungle though. T-Tigers has found him in that brush, but Immortals pick up their second one. Bradley ends up falling underneath the turret again. Immortals not afraid yet. They're going to secure this turret and they're evening up this gold lead as well. Only 2,000 separate the teams now.
Man, NRG, I'm frustrated after watching that a little bit because they had been playing so smartly as a team up until that point, but splitting like that is just never going to be a good plan against what Immortals has to offer until maybe you're like 20 plus minutes into the game and you're very strong individually and you can just kite and maybe get away bruised as opposed to dead. If they just stuck together, I mean, what were they really at risk of losing? You know, you scale better. You have the opportunity to just kill people whenever Immortals tries to go for a fight, and they have to because they're kind of an earlier game team. Yeah, I think that was a bit of an oversight from NRG. Juan Hernandez got distracted and decided he wanted to go farm the jungle. Now Immortals even things up a little bit when it comes to the gold. They have an opportunity to start bringing the game back.
I mean, comfort picks are working out for them thus far. So that game is still in NRG's playbook, or at least their favor, I should say. Now Bradley, he's not hit. As a Captain Batiste, you won't hit too many power spikes, but that Crucible is going to be very important. And we've seen the early adaptation of the War Treads come through from most captains. Max Green, however, has only got those tier 1 boots. He's actually prioritized a lot of armor instead, just not relying on that extra speed up to get his team into the engagement, rather just his ultimate. And now NRG, they are pushed back here with Immortals, maybe looking for a little something. Dienzio is going to get flared out. Nice use of vision from both teams just thus far, you have to say.
Yeah, Frostburn is pretty good, especially when you have a lot of crystal power to amplify the slow. See, Dienzio took half of his health, and it wasn't as if Immortals could have been like, oh no, Dienzio's in threat, let's go. Because if they try, the same kind of fight's going to happen that did earlier on. Immortals can't, I mean, I don't envy them at all, actually. You know, they need to really figure out creative ways of getting into these initiations, and NRG, they're back to their old habit of just sticking together and playing smart, playing safe.
Well, Ordain onto Max Green. T-Tiger is going to take that Q and jump in. Here comes Attack of the Pack. One Hernandez has to get out of there. Very sharpish. Those boots were popped. Has to run away. Immortals now on the back foot as well. One shot, one kill. Max Green is literally just going to walk into it. Whoops-a-daisy. Don't think that was going to hit T-Tigers, but better safe than sorry. And again, no kills go either way. And now it is NRG. It's up to them now. What are they going to do with this next? Actually, I'll tell you right now, AJ, they're going to start the Kraken.
Yeah, I like this. I mean, this is definitely something that can really break the game open and make it a convincing lead instead of kind of a back and forth one. But I think the way that you use this Kraken is important, right? They should probably leverage it for a team fight rather than committing to it. And what they actually did is backing away, which is fine too. I mean, it certainly forced Immortals to, for example, forgo their back farm, so their rotation is a little out of whack. You know, there's things that just pushing for a Kraken does for your team, and I think this was a couple of good ones here. NRG, at some point you have to win, though, so they need to start pushing on the gas. I think it's hit a point where they can.
Right. NRG want round 2. It's exactly the same setup from Immortals with T-Tigers up in that bush. They gotta know. They gotta know, AJ. They can't have that happen to them again. They're actually just going to retreat here and actually get a little bit more vision down. Bradley's going to pop to the shot, pick up a couple of flares. Immortals, though, pushing that lane in. You can see they have dominant control over that lane. It will push towards NRG's turret now. And that's one more turret as well for NRG to lose, and their base will be clean open for Immortals to take. Now we're in that lull period. No one wants to die because that Kraken is a very real threat. If anybody oversteps, that will be the fight going either one way or the other.
It gets higher and higher stakes as we go on, too, as those death timers grow. You know that it's going to be really bad if anyone dies. So both teams are actually sticking together a lot. Immortals, I like that they're able to exert so much pressure here onto NRG. They're clearly doing something right, but at the same time, I really don't think NRG should be letting Immortals push them around when it comes to their rotations like this. Just get some good vision down. When you see Immortals out of position a little bit or pushing too far forwards, you can commit to a fight. It's not as if you don't have the tools to just win something straight up. Right now, though, look at this. Immortals, they're going for Kraken. NRG not having vision is really about to bite them if they don't get here quickly.
Oh man, I just praised them for the vision. Now they do this to me. Bradley's going to come in with the Ordained, and look where Lightning T is. He's all the way back near his base, near that Crystal Sentry. Oh, that almost got sniped away. That one shot, my heart leapt there. That one shot, one kill was so close, but Dienzio finishes off with a basic attack, and that will be the Kraken going over to Immortal.
I can just imagine the Immortals voice comms. Guys, just let it land so we can kill it quicker. Right? Like, nah, but in all seriousness, that was pretty dicey. Immortals, I think they had a moment of panic where Dienzio jumped into the wall of the Ordained just at the last second, still got stunned. They were like, oh no, we done messed up. But it ended up working out. Now Immortals has Kraken. NRG, I feel kind of heartbroken right now. They had such a strong early game, but they just have not kept the pressure on. They haven't utilized their lead. Now Immortals, they're pushing in. This could be devastating for NRG.
Immortals with a pressure game now. T-Tiger's waiting to pounce on in. That Kraken's going to destroy the turret. There goes Max Green. Half HP. He's chunked. Lightning T in the front line now. Dienzio going fairly low. Yummy Candy Frenzy's going to be blocked. Wait for it. It's going to silence 3 members of NRG. They're going to have to retreat to base. The Fountain is going to heal them up nice and steadily. Now that Kraken's still marching on. That's another turret destroyed. Dienzio going fairly low. T-Tiger's completely ignored. Max Green, Dienzio, they're all split up. Immortals not looking so immortal right now as they just get cut down. T-Tiger's falls. That will be Dienzio falling too, but that Kraken is going to secure 3 turrets for them, AJ. That is worth in my books.
Yeah, I was trying to sort of like think about whether that was worth it or not as it was happening. They really did commit to it though, and I like that regardless of whether or not it was the right call or not. They just decided to do it and did instead of kind of being back and forth. They didn't get aced. That's huge because the minion wave won't actually push properly to actually counter push whilst people are dead on the mortal side. So it makes sense for one person to leave. Dienzio did his job. He didn't get greedy and try and pick someone up or try and help on the turret. It was a decent play, and now Immortals don't have a lot of work to do. If they ever make it into the base again, they are right there. They have the opportunity to close things out. NRG, though, they got to step up, Jaws. This is really do or die in this series, at least. And again, every series you win counts towards whether or not you're going to the Vainglory 8 next season. It's critical.
Man, that's the best thing about this format right now. Every team from the VG8 in that challenge battle spot gets to play against Immortals. They get to play against Rogue. They get to play against Tribe. This is do or die time for some of these teams. And NRG crumbling right now, but we got to say Immortals, they are looking absolutely dominating. The gold doesn't speak it, the kills don't speak it, but their late game macro play and even micro play is just absolutely on point right now. Let's have a look at the state of the game though. I mean, yeah. NRG right now, they're trying to secure vision, but Immortals just pushing in this lane. It's just one more fight now and Immortals victory.
You hit the nail on the head when you said macro play, Jaws, because it's not something where, like, the draft was necessarily that good. I think, to be honest, it wasn't that good from Immortals. It wasn't something where their early game and their rotations were that great early on in the mid game, because they weren't. They got punished for a lot of overextending. But in the late game, they know what to do to sort of attrition out their opponents and slowly build a lead. Whereas some teams, without the experience of someone like Dienzio and T-Tigers on it, who are world-class players who've been around the block a couple of times, don't know how to play that kind of game. They only know how to get a lead and then win with.
Oh, hang on a second, AJ. War Treads, attack of the pack, Lightning T rushing after them. Immortals just got the base race here. I think they got this. NRG have just let this one slip through their hands. Immortals take the series 2-0, and that'll be NRG looking a very sorry state after day number 1.
Oh, that's brutal for NRG, but they have got more games coming up. This is not the end of the road for them, unlike in the previous Challenger format. I think Immortals, every team who has still yet to face them, really needs to take note of how they play. At the same time, NRG, tighten up heading into your next games. Bradley, get your fountains on point. There's so many things they got to work on if they want to stay in the Vainglory 8.
And we'll see if they can do that in the days to come. But that series was an absolute domination from Immortals. Munch, you guys can take it away on the desk now.
Thank you very much, guys. A much closer game than we saw in Game 1, and a comical way to end it as well. Just charge straight for that Vein Crystal. But it is going to be Immortals taking this series 2-0. Even though that game was a lot closer, still a fairly convincing win, right? After that Kraken play, they managed to get that purely off of vision control, and then beyond that point, it felt like it was a little bit too late for NRG.
Yeah, this was just Immortals putting on a showcase of their macro ability. Their control of the map, their decision-making on objectives was absolutely incredible. I mean, they won a game with having 3 kills. That is unheard of. It's so ridiculous. Like, that just shows they didn't care about fights. They didn't need to be forcing fights all the time. Instead, they were just taking objectives, taking those turrets.
And this was the phenomenal early game coming out from NRG as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Sky into Koshka is very effective, and I really like NRG's draft going in so early. They were able to play very well, very cohesive, lining up. You see a Crystal Sentry gets minion candy, but it's not enough, although it did force Lightning T away from that fight, and of course they weren't able to get another kill to follow. But then, man, Immortals, they just came in hot. I mean, they know when they've had a power spike or when they have an advantage, and they actually love to throw teams on the back foot to make them retreat, because when you're retreating, you're not getting off the same amount of damage as when you're you're engaging. And so Immortals very, very good at being the aggressors and knowing that that's the advantage they can have. Ultimately, this year, they do not get the win, but they take out all the turrets. And at this point, it was now more of a time game, is if NRG could just survive long enough to win another fight. And Immortals, really, really smart here, knowing that it's a exposed crystal. They have a fortress who can, with those ultimates from the Wolves, can prevent a recall from the team, are able to rush right in and take the victory.
I just find this so comical. You see NRG like, oh no, what have we done? How have we let this happen? And then the Vein Crystal does end up going down. But honestly, it's incredibly convincing series from Immortals. This is kind of what we were expecting going in. And the MVP for this series is going to go over to Dienzio. But honestly, I feel like you could have given it to any of these 3 players from Immortals. All 3 of them played excellently. Dienzio, I feel like, was a significant carry threat in both games. Yep. But, I mean, there's definitely a case to be made for any of them. Yeah, absolutely. You could go to any of them. This is, like you mentioned, this is kind of what we expected from this Immortal squad. And for NRG, I gotta say, again, similar to what we saw in Europe, I hope they keep their heads up after this one, because this is a team that was expected to beat them. NRG should still be able to put up a very strong showing, if not beat the other 2 challenger teams and retain their spot in the Vainglory 8. But you can't let a matchup against Immortals get you disheartened, because Immortals are looking like a top team. Absolutely. Now, I want to broach a topic when it comes to Immortals now that we briefly mentioned in the intro to this series. Do we think with a performance like this against NRG, a team that has been, battling head-to-head with some of the top American teams, do we think that this is a convincing enough performance for Immortals that if they do get into the Vainglory 8, they'll be looking at kind of a top 4 spot in North America? Do we think that's a fair statement to make right now, Dragonborn?
Oh, it's a very fair statement. I mean, it's without question that these are some of the best players in Vainglory right now. They clearly rank, in the top 10 of Vainglory players overall that we've seen play. And although we've only seen a sample size of challengers for most of this season, this is a great example right here. NRG is not a bad team. They played well game number 2, but I think, Immortals just overall mechanics, team fighting, even when they're behind with Akashka, they know how to get back into these games. That's something that's just hard to find across the board amongst many of these teams, is how to get back into a game that you're losing with someone like an assassin like Kashka. I think they're definitely the most feared across some of the top captains, across like Team Solo Mid and Cloud9. There's a lot of respect for this roster coming in, and a lot of anticipation as they make it into Vainglory 8, potentially.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, incredible performance from Immortals in that series. That means they are going to take this one 2-0. Let's take a look at the points at the end of our first series. There has been a series happening off stream as well, and Echo Fox have managed to take on Tribe Gaming with a 2-0 victory for themselves. So Echo Fox, Humanist said it in his recap video. Their last 2 weeks of the Vainglory 8 looked so much more convincing than their previous performances. Looks like they are keeping that up so far. Now, we're going to be jumping on into our second game here on the stream, and it is going to be Echo Fox on the screen as well. This time, they're going up against Rogue. Now, both of these teams have had inconsistent performances, I think it's fair to say. Let's talk about Rogue first. This is kind of your guys' area of expertise, these challenger teams coming on in. For the viewers at home that don't know Rogue, Dragonborn, give me a bio of this team. What do you think of when you think of Rogue?
Oh, man, Rogue has been... If there's another gem in the Challenger Series coming up, it was Rogue. Evol and Hammy have always been kind of fairly solid players. And Evol, an outstanding captain in his own right. But really, Pond the Original coming onto this roster has been phenomenal. And I'm not sure if he's playing today, and that's going to be a huge loss, because when we looked at the Challengers, there was really only one jungler who was able to consistently body T-Tigers in the jungle, and that was Pond the Original. Nobody even came close. And so, it would be a huge loss not to have him. So depending on who is going to be starting for Rogue, this is a big deal. This team was looking to get back into the Vainglory 8. They felt like, when they got knocked out, it was one of the closest challenger battles of that season. And they know they kind of felt heartbroken about that. So, I mean, there's a lot of talent here. Hammy has improved. His Baron play is fantastic. So, like many Baron players, it's something that they picked up this season. But really, it all came down to the jungle being one of the best junglers and challengers, short of T-Tigers.
All right, now let's talk a little bit about Echo Fox. Obviously, these guys, fresh out of the Vainglory 8, it's generally been Supershot stepping in instead of Yasuo, with Irwin jumping into the jungle role as of recently.
Yeah, not only did Irwin jump into the jungle, but started playing the Scarf out of the jungle too, and has been incredibly impressive with that. So, It's going to be interesting to see if that continues to be a trend for them. They finally got their first series victory just recently in the Vainglory 8, and obviously took down Tribe in their challenge battle just earlier today. So going to be looking to ride that wave of momentum up against Rogue and keep this Vainglory 8 spot.
Yeah, they're definitely going to have to bring something special out. They've already managed to, as you say, take that 2-0 victory, and we'll see whether they can keep that ball rolling. Now, let's start to talk about the draft a little bit here as we are heading towards the second series of the day. For Rogue, what are we likely to see out of this squad? Is this another squad that just likes to play the meta, or are there some kind of pocket picks that we expect to come out of this team?
I don't know about expect to come out, but there definitely are some pocket picks. In the Challenger Series, we saw Rogue actually pull out Saw. That was before it got played in Vainglory 8 at all. So that is something that you have to keep in mind. Hammy is a very good Saw player. The Samuel, I think, is going to be a very strong pick for them, especially if it is Sibs playing in place of Pawn the Original for this weekend. But they're definitely a team that has pocket picks. I think they're going to try and stick to the meta up against Echo Fox.
What are your thoughts on this Dragonborn? Like, do you expect something like extra special coming in against a Vainglory 8 team, or like kind of just sticking to what you've been practicing, what you know already works? Like, because this is definitely the moment. If you've got an ace up your sleeve, challenge battles is when to pull it out.
Well, Rogue definitely had an advantage in jungle at times because they had a little bit of flexibility with some of their deeper hero pools. We saw Rhyme come out with some effectiveness, of course, and they can play Samuel, Baptiste, Kashka. They can play the full spectrum of the meta junglers. So depending on who it's going to be, it does look like it's going to be Pawn the Original on the roster. This is really, really huge, guys, because Pawn the Original is, if he is playing, I think we might...
We'll get this confirmed and make sure that we know for sure. I believe if it's on this overlay, then it should be correct, but I will get that double confirmed.
This is huge because, I mean, he, as a jungler coming out of Challengers, he is definitely second best behind Tigers, and he's really helped this team, you know, with a lot of big victories, taking out the Tribe in 2-0.
This is really interesting. The Vox getting banned away by Rogue, but then Lyra first picked over the Grace for Echo Fox. Not exactly something I would expect, but that... You have to assume this is going to be Rogue then picking up Grace for themselves.
Yeah, you would assume so. I can confirm, by the way, Pawn is going to be playing for certain. This is confirmed. So this is the full-strength Rogue roster, which potentially changes this matchup in terms of how strong they're going to be. But the Lyra Grace first picks, not something that is rare in the Vainglory 8, and it is going to be seen in this game as well. Glaive taken off the board by Rogue, though.
Yeah, that's a big deal to have Grace first picked on B side to give it up. Lyra is a great healer, and there's a lot of versatility there, so I'm curious to see this next ban. Echo Fox now needs to think about. You've got some strong junglers that you really don't want to give over. Grumpjaw is the ban, but I think Samuel or Baptiste are going to be two picks that Rogue will feel great about, depending on what they want to do. Or they could just go with the laner here. Yeah, they're going to go with Idris because they probably don't want to give away what they're going to do in the jungle just yet.
Makes a lot of sense to go for that. The Idris Grace is such a strong combo. We talked about it a lot over in Europe when Grace was being first picked. B-side was almost always banning the Idris away. This is an incredibly strong duo, and Echo Fox, they're gonna have to come up with some way to deal with this because Idris being able to survive for so long in the back lines of your team because he can get there so easily is a really difficult thing to take care of.
Certainly is. That Grace just has so much utility to bring to a team, especially when you have something like an Idris that wants to dive, wants to stay in the thick of the fight. It is going to be a Kestrel picked up here for Echo Fox. Now we've seen this picked up across the board generally. This is, I feel like Kestrel at the start of the season was really, it had become a fringe pick again, but more recently it's starting to become very, very common in drafts.
Yeah, it's a pick that has a lot of power. A lot of teams are really doing the flexibility, being able to go weapon or crystal with it, and its counter engage is one of the biggest strengths of Kestrel. If you can get that active camo trap down, you can just turn a team fight around when your opponents dive in. So I think they're partially looking to have this for that Idris, that when Idris jumps in, if they can get an active camo trap down onto him and just blow him up, or you just have that flat damage from the one-shots, and there's going to be the Scarf once again for Irwin, he has been having huge success with this hero.
He certainly has, but I've got to say, I'm not 100% convinced. Oh, Krull locked in as well. Suddenly we have very interesting compositions, but picking a Scarf into an Idris Grace already seems kind of strange to me because they want to dive onto you, but then a Krull comes into the mix. Like, where do we even look at for this rogue composition, Dragonborn?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of unique here. We haven't seen a lot of Cruel, and when we do, it's not so successful.
Yes.
But the one thing it has is it has a very reliable stun once it's off cooldown. And of course, against the Scarf, when you've got that Dragon Breath coming out, you really want to have that. And there's a lot of range to that stun as well. So I think that might have been the intention behind it. You're going to also want to make sure that you've just got a lot of sustain when you're going to these team fights. And Cruel does give you that in the jungle. I'm kind of fascinated. I mean, I think against the Kestrel, it's going to be a little tough because Kestrel can active camo fast enough to then repel. You know, the Cruel will jump onto that active camo and get stunned up. I'm not sure if this is the right call. Both drafts are pretty unique from both the Vainglory 8 and the Challenger's perspective.
I do really like the Krull into Scarf, though, because the whole thing of Scarf is you want to build up your stacks and then have a huge Dragon's Breath come through. If you have a bunch of weakness stacks put on you when that Dragon's Breath comes down, it's not going to have anywhere near as much impact. And again, the stuns, the From Hell's Heart can be really effective.
Yeah, so trying to counter-stack the Broken Myth stacks, if you will.
Yeah, definitely for the Scarf.
We'll see if that's actually going to work out in this series. Krull has not been successful in the Vainglory 8 unless you're Von C. We'll see if it can work out for these teams here in the challenge battles. It's time to get into the game. Let us know who you're supporting. Hashtag Vainglory 8 on Twitter. But with that, it's time to jump onto the Halcyon Fold for our second North American series.
Thank you very much, guys. And AJ, I think you're going to have to hold my hand through this one because I got to say, Rogue's composition looks so scary going up against Fox.
Yeah, the composition out of Rogue's pretty interesting here. It's definitely not something we've seen a lot of. I'm honestly kind of intrigued to see if it's going to work out, just because it's such a departure from normal things. What I will say is that there's certainly a lot of ability to just... Well, there's a lot of durability on the comp, right? A lot of times we see compositions that have a lot of survivability, but that's not necessarily the same thing. Maybe the Idris has that, but both Grace and Krull are very durable heroes. Could make it difficult for Super Shot, for example, to be able to kill them quickly. That buys time for Rogue to get kills. That being said, Scarf is a hero that's good into durable heroes, generally speaking, at least in terms of being able to do damage. They have things on Echo Fox that they can work with to accomplish things. Here comes the fight.
Oh, yeah, Slater actually secured that one. Oh, they're all burning alive, but Fox will make it out alive, and Irwin will actually pick up the Elder Treant. And let me paint you a picture, AJ. A beautiful, wonderful picture with all the oil pastels that I do have. Rogue, they run in. They just cut down Hotshot. Evo stands at the back, heals Pon. No one dies, and Rogue just walk away with the game. How does that look to you?
Well, I mean, sure. we'll see. We'll see. I'm not entirely convinced that anything is going to be that cut and dry, though, because the thing is, there's a lot of abilities on both of these teams that can kind of come out of nowhere and really change the flow of a fight. A good example, right, would be the Idris ultimate or the Grace ultimate. Or even in some situations from Hell's Heart, from Krull, because it buys you so much time to do things. On the other side, Lyra can really change the landscape of a fight. I don't think it's ever going to be a straightforward initiation.
Oh man, Slater's so good at securing those Elder Treants. I'm not entirely sure how he's doing it as a support, but he managed to do it in the end. And Fox now securing 2 of those will eventually go back to base. It's what I was talking about. Look at Pon. He's running towards Owen. He's not going to be able to find him, though. He's going to be able to back off towards his turret. In fact, he's taking a lot of damage on the exit. Another Spitfire comes through, and Pon may have to back off at this point, but still, nonetheless, Rogue, they're doing what I wanted to paint a picture of, AJ, just not successfully yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of early to make it happen too consistently. We'll see if they, with better vision later and a bit more damage, can make it happen. I think Echo Fox, they've got some win conditions worth talking about as well, though. I mean, if they are able to keep Rogue at a distance, so if, for example, Scarf gets a Frostburn and is able to really land a lot of those Spitfires, if Slata is able to get really good Bright Bulwarks down in the middle of, for example, the Grace or the Krull jump, then there are good opportunities for Echo Fox to just kind of sit there and be fine, right? It's difficult for the side of Rogue to necessarily get on the targets they need to, unless they fully commit. In that situation, maybe an Arcane Passage just resets the fight.
Well, resetting the fight is definitely something that Slater wants to do, but one thing that Lyra is also amazing at doing is disengaging with that passageway. And Erwin, he could maybe set up a sneaky Dragon's Breath at the end of it if Rogue do choose to follow it through. But I gotta say, and what they actually mentioned on the desk as well, was the fact if Pon actually comes through with these hard-hitting ultimates, if he does land from Hell's Heart, he's so pinnacle in the late game because there's a lot of abilities that actually the blue team need to actually block when you got to kind of think about it. Echo Fox need to be able to block Idris's just all-in engagement. They need to be able to block that benediction from Evol as well, and that Holy Nova. It's going to be a lot of engagement coming out from Rogue, and that kiting potential from Echo Fox is going to have to be on point. We are jumping into a pause though, just to make you guys aware. It's not just something on your screen, and we should be back into the game very, very shortly.
Most critically, I think we need to realize that if something is not blocked, things go downhill so fast from the side of Echo Fox, purely because of the weakness stacks. They can really mess with a comp like this. Someone like Scarf, who doesn't do damage, then get weakened, but it's okay, I already done my damage, right? So a good example for a hero like that would be anyone with a lot of burst. Scarf tends to ramp up over the course of the fight, tends to need a longer duration fight to do high damage over time, and as a result of that, if you get weakened right off the onset because you don't get a good reflex block from Hell's Heart, you're off to a very bad start and can't necessarily come back from that in the course of the team fight.
Well, hopefully we'll get that pause get going very, very shortly. Now, what do you kind of see the game plan evolving here for Echo Fox? Yes, they want to kind of kite around Rogue. They want to make sure Rogue cannot get on top of their squishy members, Erwin and Supershot. But where do they see to kind of prioritize? Do they just want to siege up? They got to be kind of fearful of Rogue, or are they just going to want to look for these fights in the jungle where those active camo stuns are going to be so prevalent?
I think fighting in the jungle is a decent plan. It does give you a little bit more room to maneuver around some of what Rogue has to offer. Because Rogue, they don't really care where you are. They don't mind fighting the lane or the jungle because they're just going to jump on you with a dash. But on the other hand, being able to portal over a wall lets you juke people, or being able to find an active camo stun is a lot easier in the jungle makes a lot of sense there. So I think Fox, they'd like to fight in the jungle if they're going to fight. If they're going to push, then they just want to focus on disengaging, and they should make sure they have active camos and quick fingers on the bright bulwark to actually get out of the situations. I think in terms of timeline, they probably don't want to fight until the mid-game or maybe even late mid-game. It just really depends on if they can find any windows to get ahead. Because if they can, Scarf can really get out of control earlier than you think. It just requires maybe a bit of a slip-up from Rogue, but they should be aware of that. They shouldn't just play to the mid-game. If they see an opportunity, sure, go for it.
Well, I'll tell you who isn't looking towards the mid-game, AJ. I know you love your mid-game because Vision comes into play. I just like fighting. Pond's wanting to do it right now. Has got Tension Bow first item. Hammy's actually picked up the Sorrow Blade as well. They're looking to fight, and they're looking to fight now. Even Evol has got the Fountain online. Same with Slater over the other side. Erwin hasn't completed that tier 3 item, although, as I say that, he is rotating down to the shop and will pick up Eve of Harvest here. But you got to say, Rogue, especially when Pond has hit that level 6 mark, they want to fight, and we'll see if they do want to open up something under this turret.
I think Rogue should try and apply pressure, but you got to be really careful about where and how you do it against a comp like this. If you overextend, you're going to get turned and burned on by that Scarf and the Kestrel. So what I'd like to see Rogue do, to be honest, is set up some deep vision, because they can afford to. They can afford to move into the enemy jungle pretty safely, at least at this juncture. And then maybe, sit up by the item shop when they see someone moving by their forward treant, begin to move up and capitalize there, fight there. Yes, Echo Fox want to fight in the jungle, but they critically don't want to fight in the jungle yet. So abuse that, right? You're not going to be able to fight in the lane. There's no way Erwin, Supershot ever push this wave up if they don't have to, or if they're not going for the turret, because it just puts you in a dicey position against Rogue, who can jump on you from a huge range.
Every time you mention about Rogue jumping on someone, Supershot just gets chunked. There's Chakram from Hammy. It's extremely painful at the moment. Supershot playing so far back because he has to. He knows he cannot step up. Pon's in that brush as well. Waiting there with his giant baleful axe, ready to just slice you in two, Supershot. You've got to be very careful, especially with that tension bow and with that level 6. Now, the question is, where does Slater really want to kind of push forward now? Because he is level 6, he does have that passageway, but more often than not, I can imagine they're just going to want to, oh wait, from Hell's Heart comes through, Supershot gets jumped on, everything is just piled in on him, and there's the kills I was talking about. Evo is going to get himself out of there as well. Erwin couldn't do anything because he was Holy Novid, and that is going to be first blood going over to Rogue.
Yeah, very nice play there. I wanted to see them be aggressive. They did it in a surprisingly effective way, given that they were actually just going under the turret. But CC is CC. If you lock someone down, they're not going to be able to do anything, especially when Slater wasn't already in a necessarily the best position to back them up. So yeah, really nice opportunistic play by Rogue. They need to keep those coming, though, because as we get later and later, things get scarier and scarier for them. I'd like to see maybe them leverage the gold mine here, as it is nearly full stack.
Extremely beefy. You know, it'd be quite amusing actually if the gold mine actually got fatter, or like, you know, like just bigger in general. The more gold it had in, so it started off as a tiny gold miner, just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It'd be kind of funny.
So we're going with the idea here that gold miner sort of in lore eats the gold. Like,
yeah,
he's not mining; he's harvesting.
Perfect. It would look a bit gross, so just keep it mining. But yeah, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then by the time it's 300 gold, it's just this, like, humongous mess of just gold. Just can't eat anymore.
I think there's a way of doing this without being so ridiculous. Like, you could just have, like, a pot of gold next to it that fills up. Or a bag over its back that kind of...
No, let's go full ridiculous, AJ. Come on. We have to just make this as ridiculous as possible. Gold miner gets bigger. Everything else gets bigger. Feed him minion candy as well. I know it can't happen, but if it could, gets even bigger off that as well. Okay, let's have a look at the game as a whole. What kind of creature has a diet of
minion candy and literally gold? Right? Like,
maybe gold's tasty, man. And candy, everybody loves candy. What can I say?
All right, let's refocus. I do like that idea, though. I think I'm going to pass that by our studio team on Monday. All right, Rogue. They did get that early kill, but notably, they're not actually ahead in gold right now. And it is partially because Echo Fox being very efficient, and Rogue is not pressuring them enough. Echo Fox is saying, all right, you're not going to pressure us enough, so I'm going to farm my jungle back and forth very consistently on spawn. Meanwhile, Rogue's like, I want to pressure them, so I'm going to go to the lane, but there's no opening, so I've missed time farming, right? That's where the gold disparity comes from. Rogue needs to be more decisive. They need to just go in, make plays happen. As I said, leverage vision in the jungle, leverage the gold miner. You can win fights in those situations right now.
I mean, Pom was stood there for ages with Evol as well, and Slater was across the mustache burst. They even had vision on him. They knew he was alone, just didn't want to pull the trigger. I mean, yes, Slater does have a lot of tools to kind of get out of there. Supershot taking another chakram. Luckily, Slater's got his HP, got his back. In fact, right now, Rogue have decided, you know what, actually, Pon, you, right now, go take that gold miner, and that's exactly what he's going to do. Fox actually not spotting this out. Spitfire's going to come over the wall, and it's going to steal it. Pod's in a lot of trouble now as well. Slater's going to follow him up, but there we go. There's the heal from Evol. My goodness, Erwin says, all right, cheers. Spitfire takes the gold miner.
Man, that is not what you want to have happen in that situation. Rogue need to make sure they have the support available, right? Like, that's why I keep mentioning vision. It lets you make the plays. That being said, I do think we've not given enough credit, Rogue, up until this point, to what they can actually do in the late game. Hammy can become very, very threatening. So can Kroll in the right situations, although this build is not really a build that is necessarily conducive to being strong in the late game with a tension bow Kroll. That's actually something we can talk about just by itself. That's a really interesting build. That's a build I go for if I want to make things happen early. It's not really a build I go for if I'm going to have this pace to the game. So I'd like to see Rogue start to really put pedal to the metal. They need
Oh my goodness, speaking of pedal to the metal, AJ, you spoke too soon, my friend. Supershot just gets jumped on now. Everybody is separated completely. Slater's trying to run after Erwin. His Hammy's just going to solo him out almost. And now Pon is just chasing down Supershot. That tension bow's doing work now. Does find the kill. And that'll be Slater and Erwin just cowering under their turret as Rogue secure themselves at least one extra on the board. But question is, as always, what can they really do with it?
Well, that's exactly what I was talking about, though. I like that they finally went for it. The thing is, Rogue can make even crazier plays than you might expect because they have a Grace. So they can actually just, like, dive a turret, get a kill because they have 2 tension bows on their team, and then nearly die, but just get away. So I like that a lot. They get a turret off the back. Rogue finally starting to make the moves. I guess they just wanted Cammy to also have tension bow. Maybe that's what they were waiting for. I don't necessarily mind that, but I think they could have gone aggressive earlier. As it stands now, though, whoever they choose to jump on, especially from Hell's Heart lands, is looking very dead. Very, very dead. Because they've also got Poison Shift to stop Lyra's heal. So Echo Fox, what they need to do is just reaffirm their plan from earlier and stick to it. You know, why were they so close to the turret when they weren't pushing the turret? They were doing really, really well earlier on of just like deciding we shouldn't do this at this point in the game, even though we want to. You know, they were saying, all right, we're a late game team, let's just wait till late game. Then they like didn't have anything happen for minutes and minutes and minutes because Rogue was playing very passively. And it took that opportunity to be like, let's reevaluate. Let's start being aggressive. Yeah, we should be aggressive, right? No. You're going to get caught out by from Hell's Heart. You're going to get jumped on. You're going to die. Rogue are not... It's not that late enough in the game that your carries can return fire effectively.
I mean, just obviously we are in a pause, guys, so no need to worry again. It's just a couple of little issues. Again, we'll get back into the game very shortly, but let's have a look at Fox's items then, if you're kind of talking about power spikes there, AJ. Erwin, he's got the Broken Myth now. He had the Eve of Harvest first item. This is the kind of point where he needs to fight. He can very easily stack up that Broken Myth, release a massive ultimate onto hopefully a couple of people of Rogue. I mean, you even look at Super Shot now working towards that Monocle. Got Breaking Point, got Sorrow Blade. They want to fight. This is the mid-game stage they're at. They're round level 9, round level 10. Rogue have found 2 kills, not even a single extra turret. They only found the original one. I mean, you got to say Rogue aren't really putting pedal to the metal as we've seen other and previous teams do thus far. I mean, even Hammy picked up a 3rd item tension bow. Not something we usually see either.
Yeah, I mean, I don't dislike the tension bow necessarily. You're trying to burst people down. I think in an extended fight, Rogue lose anyway. But that being said, yeah, like put the pressure on right now. If you've had a Sorrow Blade and a Poison Shift for a while, you got to utilize those to really be as effective as you can be. With these pauses coming through, though, it does give the team some time to sort of think about what they need / want to do. And I would definitely like to see Rogue just come out of the gate swinging as soon as we get back from this pause. I think there's always like this nagging feeling in the back of my head, at least when I'm playing a late game or early game comp, and I know I'm meant to be or not meant to be doing certain things. I'm sure Rogue has that, and this is their opportunity to like take a step back, just be like, okay, we do need to apply pressure. Like, yeah, we have Kroll, yeah, we have Idris, but they have Scarf. You know, that's pretty scary.
Yeah, where does Scarf love you to be? He loves you to be straight in front of him so you can just burn your entire team. And now Rogue, I illustrated perfectly, AJ, I think, with my artistic skills of my speech earlier on, that I wanted to see Rogue just sprint at the entire team of Fox and just gun them down, but that's just not what happened at all. We've got 2 kills, yes, infusions even coming out from Rogue, speaking that they want to fight. It's just not happening at the moment. In fact, I'm going to eat my words again. Pon maybe looking to go in, but again, just backing off. It's incredibly confusing to kind of see Rogue just, again, not being decisive as you want them to be.
Yeah, that being said, if they decide to fight around Crystal Sentry, and Fox doesn't immediately lose 1 player, I don't see that fight going the way of Rogue, just because there's too much damage over time. Look at this positioning. Go now. Hammy has the flank.
Goldmine is going to get taken. It's frustrating, AJ. It's a frustrating game because we can see everything. They can only see their own screens and their own vision. That's why it's frustrating. But Rogue, nonetheless, they do lose another gold miner. Gold is completely tied up here as well between them. Very slow, methodical game from both teams. But Rogue, they need to be able to just pull the trigger here. And Fox just happy to wait it out, like you mentioned, to late game.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, right? Look at their farm. It's doing fine. Yeah, it's not Druid numbers, but they're doing just fine. Hammy has pretty great farm, but I don't think he's necessarily going to be able to compete with the Scarf damage regardless once we hit 17-ish minutes. Echo Fox, they keep finding themselves objectives, too. Like, they've had 2 gold mines. As a result, even though Rogue took a turret, gold is very even between the teams. And again, like I've said in past weeks, I'll just do my like... I have to do this at least once a week, right? Some heroes spend gold better. than other heroes. Scarf is one of those heroes. So the fact that this even doesn't tell the whole story.
Well, every item is a power spike for him. That's exactly what he's looking for right now. His next big power spike. You can imagine it's going to be a Shattercast. Look at Pond, though. Maybe looking for a small engagement. Slater is going to find him from. Hell's Heart is going to swing and a miss.
No.
He actually gets stunned up himself. There comes the Dragon Breath. He's going to get melted down. Heal from Evil and Erwin. They're trying to hunt Pond. He gets healed up a fair bit, but now Hammy straight on top of Suyu Shot. He goes down. The re-engagement here, and the smite almost kills Erwin off. Hammy still trying to look for him. Chakram up in a couple of seconds. Dashes towards him. Gets the kill. Fountain to heal them all up as well. That re-engagement from Rogue really worked out for them in that time.
I can't decide if Echo Fox just sort of like defaulted. Oh, hold on a second.
Oh,
Yeah,
hang on a
that's
second.
more
Oh,
like it.
passageway.
Okay.
It's all good.
I can't decide if in that fight Echo Fox defaulted to being like, oh, the heal's gone, let's go. Or if they really didn't realize that there was an Echo on Evol. Because, yeah, like ordinarily the time that Echo Fox decided to turn engage was perfect. But it ended up being a great bait out of Rogue because they had an Echo that is healed twice. It was 1,200 health healed by Evol in that fight. It's mind-blowing. Like, there is no opportunity for Echo Fox to really chase there. What they needed to do was say, we burned one heal, but we know there's an Echo, so let's stop now and make Rogue do something again. And then we'll burn the Echo heal, and then we'll go in, right? Like, we'll do the same thing. But they burned a lot just to get on top of Pon, and Pon came back from the dead twice. I mean, he already came back once, he's Kroll, but, you know, that's it's ridiculous. So, yeah, a bit of a strategic mishap, I think, from Echo Fox. I don't think they anticipated just how much healing Evol could do.
Uh-oh. Pon wants to go in again. Super Shot's been found. He's going to block it completely. Nice Holy Nova on Slater, but Evol's just getting chunked out. Fountain's going to heal him up, and there's the ultimate on himself. He's going to pop the Echo too, so he has the ultimate once more available to him. Fox looking for this triple re-engage. Hammy caught up in the front. Another heal comes through for Hammy. Oh my goodness, Evol. The healing numbers are going to be insane. Pon now just looking for an exit, but Fox refusing to give up this fight earlier. Spitfire almost hits Evol, but he's a little bit caught out here. Pon's on the side, doesn't have ultimate, but they're just going to go straight in once more. They've been caught out, but that bright bulwark was good, but it wasn't good enough. I don't think it was. Owen's just getting chunked out. Pon, just go in, my man. He's going to find Slater and Hammy coming up big. Passageway for Slater isn't going to help him, and that will be two members of Fox going down, with Slater once again the only one alive.
Echo Fox are falling apart in these fights, and I think, you know, I can understand it. It's very difficult to fight into a Grace with Echo. I mean, in the last minute, she's ultimated like 4 times. It's just insane.
3 billion times. I've lost count. It's on two hands.
Let's just not. But the thing is, you have to adjust the way you're fighting it, and they're not doing it. They're like, oh, we burn cooldowns, let's go. We burn cooldowns, let's go. And every single time, they haven't burned enough cooldowns. Plus, why aren't you flaring the mustache bush? Pon had the great flank there, but although it was a good idea to try for it, you don't expect that play to work. Like, if I'm playing in solo queue, and I'm retreating with my team, and I back into the bush, I'm like, all right, I mean, it would be great if I could just flank here, but it's not going to work, right? And then it does, and you're like, cool. That's exactly what happened there for Pon. I think he could not have anticipated the entirety of Echo Fox to stack while chasing without even checking the bush. Yeah, overall, Echo Fox, they're just not adapting to what is, yeah, it's a weird strategy, but, you know, you've got ways that you can play around it.
Oh, it's working for Rogue. Run at Fox and win. Just slay them where they stand. That Kraken was taken by Rogue, obviously. That's why you see a massive hunking beast just lumbering down the lane. He's going to now start chomping and hitting on that turret, and now Rogue. Will they want to go in again? Pon looking for an entrance, maybe. I think they're just going to let that Kraken do its business. Evol coming in, and that Kraken once more is going to destroy that turret. We'll see what Rogue want to do. They are just going to decide to back off here, not want to take anything too quickly here. And you got to say, the echo of their former selves, Echo Fox right now just crumbling away. 2,000 gold doesn't seem like much, but their base is in ruins.
It is, and at this point, yeah, there's still opportunities to come back. Like, you got to remember the composition that we're looking at here. It's got the Scarf. But they don't have a lot of ways of keeping the Scarf in fights when they turn, and that's really punishing them right now. They need to be able to actually, like, disengage and then turn. At the moment, they've got one half of that equation down, so it's a bit dicey. That being said, if Rogue oversteps, there is good damage that Echo Fox can do in that situation. It's just like, what does Rogue overstepping even look like? Like I meant to be analyzing this game. I don't feel like I know, because you've got two Grace Heals. But how do you overstep? What is too far?
You have to sit on your base. Oh, from Hell's Heart's going to hit. Oh my goodness. Super Shot's in a lot of trouble. Nice Crucible. He's going to have to get away, but look at Hammy. He's straight on top of him. That Crucible is going to heal him up, as well as the Fountain even. Nice. And now Pon is going to go down as well. One shot, one kill. Not even needed. And now Evil is just going to be on the run. Finally, Fox find the fights that they need, and all as they needed to do apparently was keep Super Shot alive. Evo's going to burn, he's going to melt, he's going to die if he doesn't get that ultimate off. 900 HP heal, and Fox are just going to run him down, and that will be the ace for Echo Fox, and now they look to break the base. Oh my goodness.
With this all being said, if active camo lands like that, that's pretty good, and Pon didn't actually pop Reflex Block, neither did Hammy in that fight. So that is, I mean, yeah, it was perfectly played. Let me put it this way. It was perfectly played by Echo Fox, specifically by Super Shot. But even in the instance, because they're so ahead, even in the instance of perfect play from your opponents, Rogue should probably still win these fights. The problem is they just made a huge misplay. So yeah, this has given a huge window to Echo Fox. Let's see if Pon and team, if Rogue can actually come back for them.
Well, they're going to start up that Kraken. And now Rogue posturing towards it. Evo's near base, though. Can't really be much help right now. Has to really get his fast boots are moving. Fast feet are moving. Rogue, they need to go in now. They need to go in now. Oh my goodness, they just did it. Rogue just stole the Kraken. Hammy's just going to cut them down. Here we go. Pon's going to find the back line, and Hammy is just straight on Owen. Owen's in a 1v2. They need to just kite for him. Evo's just straight on top. The heals are way too much for Fox to deal with. Hammy's almost found Shooter's Shot, dashes forward, finishes him off with a basic attack, and now Owen is just going to be the target for Rogue. Fox have been outfoxed. They get taken and cut up. And now Slater once more, the last member alive, hasn't died yet, protecting his KDA, AJ, as that Kraken is going to march on their base.
Oh, man. After that comeback, to lose the Kraken like that, absolutely heartbreaking for Echo Fox. I don't see them defending their base here. Kraken's still full health with only the 2 turrets left. Gauze, I think we're going to be seeing game number 2 with Rogue in the lead here.
Oh my god, I think so too. One turret's going to fall, the next one to follow. Slater, the last lonely Lyra, is just going to have to walk back to base. That Kraken is going to finish off the crystal. And I got to say, Rogue, they may have not found the openings in the early game, AJ, but they sure did find them in the mid.
Absolutely, and moving into our next game, I really want to see, Rogue apply pressure more and earlier if they're going to go for something like this, but I'd also like to see Echo Fox just make sure they're playing around what Rogue has, because in the late game they kind of lost track of that.
We'll see if they can do the same thing next game. We'll see if there's any more interesting drafts, but to break that game down a little bit more, we got Munch and the boys over on the desk.
Thank you very much, guys. We've seen a Krull finally be successful in the challenge battles. Obviously, we've seen it in the past. We've seen TSM use it. Now we're seeing other teams try and find a use for him within the meta. And a phenomenal victory coming into this one for Rogue. It looked like Echo Fox were going to take that, but then a little bit of a throw when it came to the Kraken.
Yeah, it was looking so good for... it was mostly for the side of Rogue during that game, but then Echo Fox started to finally come back, finally finding their footing, and then it just all goes south with one misstep at the Kraken. But, again, this Krull being used almost entirely to try and set up plays for the Idris. And again, Idris Grace. It's just so difficult when you have that much healing able to come out when you get into trouble. It's just so difficult to fight against.
So for someone like me that won't understand all of the intricacies of these fights, Dragon Ball, run me through these, because these were some really complicated fights.
Yeah, we really saw Rogue just setting up ganks consistently. Pon the original is just the centerpiece of these engagements. He goes in very, very fast. He wants to get those weakness stacks on quickly. They take damage from the Scarf, but again, the heal coming out from Evol, able to give them the sustain they needed. The surprise attack was so important. Rogue got the early game because of it. And it was actually not until we saw Echo Fox start to regain some composure into late game that they started to win some of those fights. But we see consistently when they got the jump on, they were able to find it. This is the one time, though, where we do see Hammy goes in very, very far, but thanks to the Kestrel being able to go to active camo, does find the kill on the Hamby. Echo Fox started to regain control here at this point.
This was one where the heal from Evolve didn't come out in time to try and save Hammy going so deep. You had the Echo, used it on the ultimate, but Hammy was already dead before the second heal could come through. But then once we got to these later fights, again, just the double heals from Grace, the Divine Intervention, the shields that it provides, the Holy Shield, the 40% damage reduction, and this, of course, the Kraken Steel.
This is the heartbreaking moment for any Echo Fox fans watching this game. You just see him get it. I believe that was actually an auto attack that got it in the end there alongside the Chakram, but yeah, and then obviously we already saw this fight. We know what the rest of the game looked like.
But again, here comes that what we're talking about. You look at Hammy, he goes down very low, and 890 heal puts him back to full while he's in this duel with the Kestrel. That even the active camo trap is nowhere near enough. Once he gets unstunned, he just dashes onto the Kestrel, finds the kill, and that's all she wrote.
And a huge part of that was, like, you can see Erwin there. For that entire fight, he had no energy. He couldn't actually be the DPS that his team needed him to be. And that's one of the situations that these teams will capitalize on. If you're found with no energy, they will punish you for that. And that means Rogue is going to be up in this series. Now, looking towards this next game in this series, what needs to change here? Like, was this a matter of Rogue just outplaying Echo Fox, or was this just a couple of late game mistakes that made it go their way in the end? I mean, Dragonborn, like, what do you expect to come into this second draft? Do you expect there to be major changes for Echo Fox?
Well, I absolutely think that, Rogue has the potential to counter you in the jungle no matter what you do. And it was actually interesting to get the Cruel pick was really for the lane, which is a little bit different than what we've seen previously. Pawn the Originals usually wants to dominate the jungle. And in this case, the Scarf was susceptible, but as it was racking up to late game, started to kind of come into its own, and that, unfortunately, Echo Fox let that one slip away. I think, though, if you do come in here, this is really going to be, when you have Rogue on A side now, it's going to be challenging, because now they've got to kind of, like, play on, they're going to have to, ban first, pick first, and have to show maybe their carry first right out the gate. So as we jump into this draft, I really want to focus to see how Pawn the Original and Hamby will pick their carries and win, because Echo Fox definitely looking to counter.
I think the big thing here, for me at least, for Echo Fox is don't let the Grace Idris combo go over. It's too strong of a duo to just allow your opponents to have without having a hard counter in mind already. And so they're going to be a Vox first ban. I'm a big fan of Vox first ban from a side in this current meta, because it forces your opponents to then say, okay, we're going to ban either the Baron or the Grace. Grace gets to go through. Now Echo Fox essentially has to either pick or ban the Idris.
Yeah, also Lyra, quite a good pick up into Grace as well. It means that at least you get one of these sustained captains, something to tide you over during these fights and keep you rocking and rolling. It's going to be a Grumpjaw pick, so kind of straying away from what is standard right now.
And we saw one Grumpjaw earlier today. Went for that Crystal Grumpjaw. Didn't really work out, but this could very well be the Weapon Grumpjaw, which I feel has a much higher success rate. Grumpjaw overall actually does not have a very high success rate in the Vainglory 8. Across both regions, the first 3 to 4 weeks of play, it's sitting at under a 40% win rate. So it really has not been able to shine the way that teams have liked, because teams have just figured out ways to deal with it. But really interesting that they don't go for the Lyra at all here. This is going to afford Rogue, or allow Rogue the opportunity to ban that healer away.
Yeah, they were going to do just that.
So now looking at Echo Fox, what do you anticipate the pick being here, Dragonborn? Where do you go from here alongside this Grumpjaw? Is Adagio an option?
It could be. They could flex the Grumpjaw as captain. We haven't seen that a whole lot recently, but it's possible. I think, this point you really would prefer to get another flex pick than maybe like even a Glaive if you wanted to, or you want to get that kind of push. You really want to be able to get to the back line past the Grace. Grace is a pretty good front line as well. On the side of Echo Fox, though, we know that Super Shot as a carry has some unique preferences, and we've seen that come up in the draft kind of quickly here. So I don't expect to see a duel, but wouldn't be surprised. Kestrel is going to be coming out.
Yep. So Kestrel has been a prevalent part of a lot of these drafts, and that is very likely to go over to Super Shot. That's something we've seen him lean on. But now over towards Rogue. What do you go with here to round out this composition, knowing that both Kestrel and Grumpjaw can be flexible, can go in different roles? Is there something that you can draft that's just safe here?
Black Feather, I think, would be a really good pick for them to pick up. You can go either weapon or crystal, depending on if you want the poke or you want the all-in. You also just want someone who can dive into the backlines when you're playing with a Grace. It just makes things work so much better. The Holy Shields are just so effective if you have someone already in the team. And you can't go for double range with a Grace because it just doesn't work out. You end up with Grace isolating herself, essentially, whenever she uses her A ability. So the Celeste is going to be one pick. That's
Celeste has been incredibly popular across the challenge battles.
Definitely been growing in popularity. Even in Vainglory 8, we've seen her a couple of times start to rear her head up and be more prevalent.
Yeah, and this could be Pawn the original on Celeste. We saw him pull out a jungle Celeste in Challengers against Tribe 2-0'd them with Celeste pick both times, and it was something that, we saw Tribe had no answer to, and so I wouldn't be surprised at all we see Rogue pull this out again. Very effective for them so far.
And the Glaive as well, going to round out this composition. Glaive, obviously, very good into Kestrel. It's something that we see that interaction quite a lot.
Yeah, and so it's interesting here. A lot of times when you see a Grumpjaw, we've talked about it on the Vainglory 8 desk. The counters to the Grumpjaw are the Kestrel and the Scarf. Those are the two most used heroes to take care of the Grumpjaw. The Celeste kind of fills a similar role of just having that long range that can sort of scale up really well into the late game and deal with the Grumpjaw once you get to that stage. It does look like it will be a Captain Grumpjaw, though, as the Samuel comes out for this final pick.
Yep, so Irwin going to be taking that Samuel to the jungle and Super Shot with the Kestrel in lane once again. So we have our compositions rounded out. Captain Grumpjaw, not something we were expecting coming into this draft, but it obviously is something that is kind of on the edge of the meta, something that you can go for. How are we feeling about these compositions then? Do Echo Fox have what it takes to push this into a 3-game series? Can they actually get back in this one now?
It's definitely possible. The Samuel pick is one that it's hard to get to that back line sometimes. It's hard to get on top of Samuel, and he's got so much sustain. But, I really love the Celeste pick that we've seen, and of course, Glaive. I'm not sure if it's going to be hamming on the Glaive or if it's going to be Pawn on the Glaive, so that's actually still not certain. And that's nice to have that flexibility. You're kind of not really revealing your true composition even when the draft's complete, which is definitely an advantage going into making the team question as you get into this game with the first few minutes. But I think Rogue has been performing very well. Pawn the original has been dominating in the jungle. I actually think last game might have been probably one of their worst performances for Pawn. I expect them to clean things up, and I think they're going to take this 2-0.
All right, so we need to see them pick it up just a little bit. It's time to jump on into this one. Let us know who you're supporting for this game. Hashtag Vainglory8. Do you believe in the Echo Fox comeback, or do you think Rogue can run away with this one? It's time to find out as we head into the second game in this series. Rogue against Echo Fox. Let's get on into it.
Thank you very much, guys. My name is George, joined by AJ once again. And yes, that is the main question on everybody's lips. Can Echo Fox come back against Rogue? Because Rogue, quite a dominating performance as it reached the late game there.
Oh, absolutely. Really, really strong stuff. I was very impressed by what I saw before. And compositionally, they've got a few of those same ingredients. One, the Grace, which arguably one of the better ingredients to have from that composition they ran last game. I have to admit, I think that what Echo Fox has is a bit better for dealing with it, mostly because of the fact that, if Grumpjaw, for example, eats Grace, a lot of that utility is shut down. It's a question of whether they can execute upon that, though.
Wait and see. Already Evo. Oh, did he get that? Oh, we got it.
Nice.
Evo. Steel, King, and even Pawn on this Celeste. I think we're actually seen a whole lot of is Celeste jungle, but Evo now sealing away more of the fronts. Man, Rogue already pressuring out Fox and Slater on this Captain Grumpjaw, and that's going to be the main question there, AJ, or the main thing we're going to watch out for is can he actually isolate Evo to make sure he's just a non-factor in these fights?
Yeah, that is indeed going to be very critical. We'll see if that ends up happening. I like the fact that we're seeing this lane Glaive, by the way. I want to touch on that a second more. Glaive plus Grace is a composition that can really just be great dive buddies. as we head into the later stages of the game and the mid game. So keep your eyes on that. We might see a lot of work being done very quickly by Rogue just diving in. And yeah, Celeste can't necessarily follow in the same way, but she certainly can support from a distance. So there's an opportunity here, especially if Hammy finds a good knockback.
Yeah, he isolates himself, but also isolates another member of Fox. So that'll be Evo's job to make sure Hammy stays alive in these fights. But now Pon, he's just forever pushing, it seems. Erwin out of his own jungle is going to group around this Elder Treant, but with 2 members of Fox just rotating down. Evo does miss the Holy Nova. It's alright, buddy. We all miss him from time to time. We will ignore it for now. Now Pon getting chased out by Slater. Benediction over the wall from Evo, though. He's never done.
It's super frustrating playing against a Grace sometimes in the early game. She can constantly pressure you with the super long range on Benediction. If you overstep and try and actually have a fair fight, you're going to get knocked up by Holy Nova. It's really tough. So I like the fact that Evol's being a nuisance. That's what you definitely want to be doing in this situation.
Nuisance is exactly what he's good at. Maybe he should change his name. I don't know. Not up to naming... Oh, Evo! Oh, that was close. Super shots. Almost had a good shot on him, but Hammy doing fairly well against Super Shot in this lane, I must say. Obviously starting with a book of eulogies, AJ, so he's going to be sustaining a little bit more than you normally would, starting off with a Weapon Blade, but melee laner, especially against someone like a Kestrel, can be quite hard sometimes, but he's holding his own.
Yeah, he's doing a decent amount of work here. Obviously, Book of Eulogies makes a huge difference, as you said. See as well, he's doing some good damage back, too.
Yeah, that's a nice core collapse on Slater there. He did dive in front of Super Shot, taking the bullet for him, but the advantage chunked out anyway. And now Super Shot and Slater fairly low, which means Rogue now looking for a small invade on Erwin. Erwin getting those fakey recalls off, just making sure. Rogue knows where he knows he is, so wrap your head around that one.
I can.
No, neither can I. But Rogue, still, they're pushing the lane. That's exactly what they need to do. Let's talk about the item kind of scaling here. Looking at Pon, he's picked up this triple crystal bit. We know he's going to be a menace in the late game, but where do we see Hammy kind of building? Is he going to be building more tank orientated, more relying on Pon, or is he going to want to go for this upfront burst? We do see a lot of these glaive players do going tension bow nowadays.
I think I wouldn't mind him just going for damage. The thing is that if he does, Erwin and Super Shot are very valid targets for him to just take down quickly, and Pon can finish anyone that he can't kill right off the bat. Oh, this is bad news.
Oh, yes, Slater just gets a hangry onto 3 of them. Pon's now completely isolated. Super Shot goes down, though. Heliogenesis was good. It's 349 damage, and he ends up falling. Now, Super Shot and Pon, they end up trading, but Hammy was fairly low, so he had to back here, and now it's just all up to Evo to push that lane. But Fox really coming in, or at least Slater definitely came in big there.
Yeah, I really have to say that was a very nice engagement. He hit all 3 people with the splash damage from his dash. So whenever you can do that, you're going to chunk people out quite nicely, even as a captain, just because early on in the game it has pretty high base damage. This certainly buys a lot of space for Echo Fox to keep applying some nice pressure.
I mean, that's what they've been doing, but I mean, you got to apply more pressure, it seems, to this Celeste. She scales up into the late game like an absolute beast, but with just one item, and that being the Frostburn, surely you just want to put more pressure on her a lot sooner. Yes, you've got to contend with the Hammy, you've got to contend with Ebo, but Slater, he's going to hit that level 6 mark soon, and he's already doing a fair bit of base damage. I'm kind of curious to see where Fox actually want to put pressure on, because at the moment they're not playing around, they're playing around Rogue more than playing to their composition as a whole, it seems.
That being said, they are making Rogue worry about a lot of things pretty successfully right now. Rogue has to be careful about stacking up. You can see Evol is using Holy Nova as soon as Slater goes in, which means he's not using it to dive on the backline and set one up, or he's not using it on the target that Hammy knocks back into the team. There are things that are going quite nicely for the side of Echo Fox. It's just about capitalizing on it, I think, because right now it's pretty difficult. That's expected to an extent with the composition that they're running and when it spikes, but I think they could do maybe a little bit more pressuring up their own.
Pressure, pressure, pressure. That's what AJ wants. Hope you can hear him. Well, they definitely can't, but still. Slater now, he is at that level 6 mark, looking to maybe isolate a single target from Rogue. But Super Shot, You know, he doesn't rely on the levels like anybody else does. He just wants loads of those points in Glimmer Shot, and he has actually got a Sorrow Blade as well. The Malice and Verdicts will start hurting from Erwin as he picks up that Frostbird. And you've got to imagine, Fox, they come into this game number 2, kind of battered and bruised. And speaking of battered and bruised, actually, Supershot takes a lot of damage, but Evil is going to be able to disengage here. Hammy's been eaten, though. Slater is going to use that Hangry to get a little bit of distance, spits him back out, or not in front of his team, actually in front of Evil. Mispositioning there by Slater on that ultimate, or at least the ending of it.
Echo Fox is starting to do some really respectable damage. I think Rogue needs to be very careful. Yes, they've got Grace Ultimate to reset a bad situation, but if they don't position correctly, Echo Fox can get damage down onto multiple people, and the heal's only going to affect one. Right now, I'd like to see Rogue start to do a little more as well. You can see they're going for the gold mine. This is exactly the kind of thing I'm thinking they need to start doing. Because they definitely have the edge here, at least for the time being.
I mean, you wanted them to be more proactive in the first game, and not what they're doing right now. They're not being proactive at all, and I mean, neither are Fox. I mean, both these teams very hesitant to actually make a full-on forced engage. You've got to say maybe that's because Pond needs to scale up. Yes, maybe they want Supershot to scale up. Maybe they want Erwin to scale up, but they've got massive tools to isolate targets, Hammy and Slater. I mean, they've got massive heals coming out from Evil on the side of Rogue, and active camo stuns as well. I mean, both these teams maybe a little bit nervous coming into this game number 2, because game number 1, it was a knife's edge at one point.
It was indeed. And I also, you know, we got to remember, let's talk stakes for a second. This is a critical game for both of these teams. If Rogue actually picks up the win here, they're really well positioned, having won a third of their series already, heading into the rest of the weekend. Echo Fox, of course, wants to make a statement as well. Will they have the opportunity to, though? This is arguably, you know, both of these teams, when you're looking at teams like Immortals, right, these are two of the teams not quite on the Immortals level, so any win you pick up matters more for that reason, too.
Okay, now they're pushing the turret. Will we see action? A lot of cauldrons down, but Pon choosing to actually make them explode with that heliogenesis, and it's going to be a bit of a slower game, I think, AJ. I think both teams now realizing that we don't want to see any action. We just want to see vision control, macro play, the finesse of Vainglory, but everybody else just wants to see them fight all the time. At least I do. But now let's look at the late game, though, because these teams are taking this very slow. We've seen Supershot now. He's picked up that monocle. Where do we want to see them fight around, and where do we want to see them in terms of items when we want to see engagements, or when do you think they want to engage?
I think, you know, whenever you're playing a composition that has, for example, good kite or the ability to play with positioning as Echo Fox does, you want to play around things like the gold mine or objectives in the jungle, because you have more space to kind of work with what you have. And someone like a Kestrel thrives in that environment where you can lay down traps and make it difficult for your opponents to move. On the other hand, though, if they filter themselves into some corridors, got to keep in mind as well that someone like Hammy can just jump on them, and that's a very scary situation to be in as well. So I think ultimately, though, both of these teams like fighting in the jungle, which means, you know, it doesn't really matter, is the end result.
They can fight anywhere. They can fight in the jungle, they can fight in the lane, just preferably the jungle for both teams. Gold Miner halfway full, almost, and now Rogue, now pressuring this lane in. I gotta say, Hammy has been a bit of a saint in this game. Normally it is very hard, and what I touched on earlier, to play against this ranged matchup, but managing to find fights and even creeping a small CS lead as well over Supershot. Slater maybe looking to go in here. Evol is chunked out a little bit, same with Hammy, but Hammy has got a little bit more armor under his belt now. Has got that poison shiv as well to negate some of the healing from Erwin. Rogue still just flaring up, putting a lot of that vision down. So again, refusing to go in until the time is right.
I think that's smart. You know, you don't want to jump the gun, especially against a Grumpjaw. It's very risky. He can turn fights around from nowhere, and if you don't find the perfect angle, for example, on an afterburn, suddenly you're just in the wrong spot, and there's nothing you can do. So I like the fact that they're playing it carefully. I don't think there's much reason to put yourself at a big risk. You're not that far behind. You don't need to play that kind of game to come back from some kind of perceived deficit.
Well, Rogue now and Fox just going back to their lane matters. Just clearing out those waves, pressuring that turret, and with every minion wave that does actually crash onto the turret, that's still a little inch of damage down, and it's an inch that Rogue don't have to actually secure later on. So that's another important thing to think about. Hammy's just been consistently shoving these waves in over and over again, making sure that turret is under the pressure it really needs to be, especially for their composition, who you could say, and I definitely think you could argue, is going to struggle a little bit in the late game taking these turrets just because the wave clear and the amount of damage Erwin and Super Shot have. Hammy, though, wants other matters, and he's actually just going to, I think, sacrifice his own life here, maybe, just to take that first tier turret. That is going to be the case. A 1-for-1, but would you say that's actually worth it for Rogue at this point? Because now Slater has an opening.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth it so long as you can defend this turret, and Pawn should... Oh, maybe not.
Oh, no. Evo's bitten off way more than he can chew. Slater's going to follow him up. Erwin just trying to find that last executing blow. Those Malice and Verdicts not quite landing. That turret's now going to turn his attention onto Erwin. Evo and upon the original, very, very low. Super Shot. I bet he wishes he had his ultimate up right now, but one shot, one kill is not available. And now with Hammy returning to the field, that's a fountain pop here. Benediction is going to land. Evo going very low. Finally finished off by Erwin. No, 0-for-0 trade. Well, 1-for-0 trade. I don't know where they got the other 0 from. Echo has now been finished from Evil here, so another big power spike here for Rogue.
Man, talk about the nick of time there. Hammy coming to back his teammates up. I think, yeah, this is exactly what I was kind of talking about earlier on. It worked out very nicely for Rogue because they were able to defend the turret. It was a good trade. So long as they don't, lose a gold mine off the back, it's really good, and there's no chance of Fox going for that. We've also now got the power spike you're talking about from Evol, which is huge. It means next time they go for that play, I would probably back up Hammy. Ultimate him once, Echo, ultimate him twice. You're getting the turret for free. I mean, you can just face tank it. Why not? Why not, Joss?
Why not? Just run up to it. Don't matter about your own life. Just absorb those turret shots. I mean, I can see you doing that in your game, AJ, but maybe this game they don't want to do that because, especially if you're Pon, someone not so tanky. Oblivion's going to come out. Ooh, it's actually going to sleep Evo. Maybe this is their time to go in. Hammy dashing on the back. Oh, look at that damage onto Super Shot. Just goes down to a Heliogenesis. Solar Storm onto 2 people. Now Erwin's on the run. Hammy needs to be able to follow this up with another nice afterburn. He's done it time and time again, but that Heliogenesis and the Frostburn, way too much for Rogue, or way too much for Fox even. And now Hammy just chasing out Slater. Rogue, there's still a game up in this series, AJ, and it's looking like their game again.
Yeah, I don't see a situation where Rogue really falls too far behind after this. They have such a lead, and once Grace hits that Echo, it's so difficult to do anything. I don't think there's a good answer, for that kind of pickup on the side of Echo Fox. They're really going to rely on Grumpjaw ultimates. Maybe that's the only one, to be honest.
How many ults has he hit, though? That's the thing we got to think about, because we talked about in the early game, as soon as he hits that level 6 mark, he can isolate Evo. He can isolate Hammy, which he did one time. He's just not either landed the skill shot, or he's just not made them work and actually followed up with kills. This Grumpjaw at the moment is really just being this frontline tank with a pair of Water Heads, it seems. I mean, he's got an Atlas Pauldron, yes, and his base damage is quite high, but Rogue is just shrugging it off more or less the time.
Yeah, it is pretty difficult to find the window. And the thing is, as well, Grumpjaw in this comp normally doesn't want to be eating the captain, probably. You want to eat a carry and then just blow someone up whilst they can't actually do return damage to your double threat comp. Because that's the risk of playing double threat. Like, each member of your threat team is very squishy. And normally Grumpjaw can't protect that well except for eating a damage threat. But in this game, he kind of has to eat Evil, because otherwise, 2 ultimates. So there's no winning. Like, there's no winning that situation. You need to have other, confounding variables happen. Like, you need to have bad positioning from Rogue, or you need to have someone overextend, or you need to cap someone, right? Like, there's not many ways that damage sources from Echo Fox can do their job effectively. Look at this.
Well, Rogue's going to go in. That is going to be a Drifting Dark onto Hammy. That heal coming out from Miro. Double heal. Here comes Slady. Wants to enter the fight. Doesn't have the ultimate available. Solar Storm's going to hit 2 people. And now Fox are on the run. too sly are Rogue, but Pond takes a big active camo trap. One shot, one kill. He's going to find Hammy, and they're going to jump on Hammy once again. They'll get stunned up, though. Core collapse from Pond was pretty big. That turret's going to fall, and no one going down just yet. Although Pond might be a little bit caught out here. Slater dashing to the back line. Those shields are massive. The core collapse big, and there we go. There goes another kill for Pond. Helio Genesis almost took out 2, but he ends up getting sniped away, and now Evo is going to try and take out Owen, but Owen picks up a kill. Hammy, can he be the man that everybody wants, that Rogue fans wants? No, he cannot, because he just cannot find the kill on 2. Owen, that fight was messy. It lasted way too long, but still 2 for 2, and a turret goes in favor of Echo Fox.
So remember what I said literally right before that fight. I was like, the only way Echo Fox can deal with this is there's not great positioning on the side of Rogue. Well, Pon was very poorly positioned. He was miles away from his team. You have to be able to join up and do work together. He ran away from just Slata. That's the only person who was threatening him. If he'd ran under the turret, or if he'd ran, down the mustache bush and then back and behind the turret, he could have backed up Hammy during that double heal to actually kill the carries. Hammy also probably got a bit scared compared to what he needed to, given the fact that 2 heals were going to come up. He had basically 1,200 health more than he thought he did, and that's difficult to internalize at some stages, right? It's hard to realize that you are okay, actually. But yeah, Fox, that was a good opportunity for them to find a mistake from Rogue, and they did. As a result, things are a bit more even now.
They're a bit more even, but will it stay that way? I mean, Rogue's still looking very strong, and as long as Pong can get going in these fights, stacking up those broken myth stacks, it's very easy for him to get a massive ultimate off. Erwin's been found, though. He's been caught. War Treads popped. A lot of damage on him. Core Collapse is going to get blocked, though. Slade's going to re-engage with the War Tread. Super shot on the side. Pond's going to go very low. There's the heal from Evo, but now he's completely isolated. Slade's going to jump on him. Another beautiful Core Collapse. Kraken's going to start up, but it's not in the favor of Echo Fox. Super shot in the front line, and now Pond is popping off. Owen, the last member alive for Echo Fox. Rogue just going to chase him down, run and gun. Pon, please, just finish off him. He deserves it. Just take him out of the field. Only Nova is going to find him, but they end up trading there. Ace comes through for Rogue, and they might as well just start up the Kraken now.
Yeah, easy pickup for the side of Rogue. That fight was much different than the last. There was a very distinct line of scrimmage that Slata moved too far past without his team, and that Pon, the original, stayed well clear of in order to stay alive. And that was exactly how Rogue needed to execute a fight in the late game like this. Let's see if Super Shot can make the Super Shot happen, though. One shot, one kill. Not going to steal away the Kraken this time. Came very close before. I was a little bit worried about it, actually. Just given earlier on.
I'm worried about every single one-shot, one-kill that happens. It's going to steal summon one day. You know it does. That massive burst damage is just sometimes too much for teams to handle, but the Kraken goes over to Rogue nonetheless. Still 2,000 in the lead. 8-6 on the scoreboard, but you've got to look at the situation as a whole. Fox, they've got a lot of damage down to that Kraken, but Rogue, a siege can be quite hard to deal with. Who is hard to deal with? Hammy and his damage. Super Shot gets Core Collapse, but he is going to block it. And now Oblivion's going to come through, completely blocked as well. Kraken still marching down this lane, and will Fox be able to kill it in time? I don't think so. That turret's going to go down with ease, and Rogue still marching on the base.
If Pon the original had like one more stack of Broken Myth, I think he would have killed Super Shot there, kind of jumping the gun a little bit. Maybe not quite necessary, but still you can't argue with results, right? 2 turrets picked up from this push by Rogue. Very nice stuff there. Echo Fox did not have a good response to Hammy flanking. I think if you are able to react quickly enough, you think maybe there's a way of turning the fight around. But Hammy, I gotta admit, this is beautiful. He just decided, I'm not really trying to kill someone here necessarily. I'm mostly just creating space. So instead of saving my reflex block and relying on quick reflexes to block something and then translate that into a kill, let's just pop it while I'm going in. There's probably going to be an active camo. There's probably going to be a Grumpjaw ultimate. There's going to be something that I need to deal with. And so he just did it ahead of time, and I think Fox, mentally what that did to them was it said, all right, I guess we can't fight because we can't actually, kill him. We're not going to be able to crowd control. It bought a lot of time, a lot of space for Rogue to get in position and do what they needed to.
I mean, what's scary for Echo Fox right now, they could be the second team today to go 0-2, a team from the VG8 to go 0-2 to these strong teams coming up from Challenger Series. It's a very scary possibility, AJ, and it sets up these Challenger Series teams for good runnings in the days to come. Now
it really does, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, The items are just coming through thick and fast. Hammy's going to be invulnerable. I'm telling you that right now. He's going to be almost unkillable with that jacket on. Now Rogue just looking to pressure this lane, and we got to look at 10 minutes ago, AJ. These teams were so hesitant to fight, and now Rogue just pulling the trigger whenever it sees fit for them. Tenjibo's finish here from Super Shot really wants to get that burst damage down to Pom, but like we've seen time and time again, Hammy has got his number.
Yeah, Hammy has been doing a great job of getting on the back line and at least, again, creating space. He doesn't necessarily find the afterburn, but he does consistently stop people from doing what they want to in fights, and that's the more important thing at this point, especially given that Celeste has long enough range that it doesn't matter so much. All right, look at this item pickup real quick. Slata went for a no-wave gauntlet. That could actually be pretty big. Used at the right time, it can deactivate reflex blocks and give you a free stuffed. Something to keep your eyes on, because normally stuff becomes a bit dicey in the later game. It's pretty telegraphed. You know, you're able to reflex block it. But if someone doesn't realize Slata has a null wave, which in the heat of the moment late in the game you might not, it could actually do a ton of work.
Oh, Benediction, you know what's better than pay for food? Free food. There goes the null wave corner. He's just going to eat him up. Oblivion's going to find Evol as well. That was absolutely massive. Super Shot almost gets annihilated though by that Solar Storm. I'm not sure they're even going to matter. They're even going to care. AJ Rogue are just going to chase this up. A Heliogenesis and a swipe from Hammy will just take him off the board. Now Rogue, they end up finding this Kraken as well. That null wave didn't do all too much in that fight.
Yeah, there was a couple. So I thought it would, and I thought that actually eating Pawn might. But, you know, as you get older, you realize your place in the universe is much more minuscule, and you don't matter as much. That's what happened here. These things did not matter at all, in fact. That was rough. I think that same kind of existential crisis probably just went through the minds of Echo Fox when they were like, we just did everything right and didn't do anything.
I mean, it sounds like me and you need to have a sit down, AJ, in all honesty. That was very philosophical of you.
Yeah. I've come to terms with it. Echo Fox, maybe not, though. Maybe we should talk to them.
But yeah, maybe we should talk to them, because there's another Kraken down coming in from their base. Now, Pom, pushing forward. Here we go. This is it. This could be the end of the Rogue for Echo Fox, but will they be able to pull something back here? They need to be able to kill that Kraken fast. There's only 2 turrets remaining now. That Kraken isn't going down all too quick, and Rogue, they're impending might on this base. Slater has that null wave available. That silence is going to be pretty big. Maybe they make an engagement here. Look at Super Shot. His positioning. War Treads here. That's going to be a core collapse missing, and Pond's going to get a heal up. But look at the base, though. I don't think they actually noticed there. Hammy's actually just taking the base. They do actually manage to get stuffed onto Pond. He might just go down. That Oblivion's going to get blocked, but it's not going to matter. Owen gets knocked up. Slater, and now it's Evol's time to stop these recalls. Drifting dark here. And in fact, Hammy is just chunking away at this crystal. It might just go down. It does. That's going to be 2-0 going over to Rogue, and 2 of the VG8 teams are now sitting at 0 points coming through to the next couple of days.
What's with the backdoors, man? We've seen 2 of them in the challenge battle so far. Crazy stuff. Rogue looking real good. I think Echo Fox, maybe their drafts are the thing that I would highlight the most to work on. Let's see what they bring in their other games.
Goodness, my heart couldn't take that, AJ, for the last couple of seconds there. That game needs to be broken down because, yes, there's been 2 backdoors. What can teams do to stop these? I don't know. Munch, you guys can take it away.
There we have it. Another win for Rogue. A 2-0 in the end. And what a way to do it. As you guys rightly said, a second backdoor coming out today, just in North America alone. Fantastic play from Rogue, though. They managed to take it, but incredibly even game all the way through. 9-9 final scoreline, and just distraction plays at the end to win it.
Yeah, really well played game. Again, Echo Fox is showing these signs that they're starting to put things together, but just still not quite getting there. I mean, this is so important to them, for both of these teams, to pick up victories here. Even if they could have just gotten 1 game, like just that little bit to try and help you get into the Vainglory 8, or stay in the Vainglory 8 in their case. But again, phenomenal play from Rogue coming out here.
All right. I mean, talk me through some of these fights, because it definitely felt like Fox had a strong team behind them, and Irwin had a phenomenal job.
Yeah, we saw Echo Fox multiple times, able to push in. Look how deep they're able to go here, picking up the kill. But and they're going to fight Pond the Original in this fight as well. But it's just so even back and forth. Evol, we've talked about his support play. He's one of the best. Goes in there, does secure a kill, makes it an even trade. And that's important just to kind of slow the game down. Rogue has got the Celeste in the jungle, right? You want to be able to scale up. And of course, with the Grace, the sustain that Celeste has, she's got an Eve of Harvest as well. She's able to move down in here. And of course, in these choke points, Celeste does a lot of damage. It's really hard to dodge out those Heliogenesis here. Aaron, really fantastic job on the Samuel, but you know, when you're trying to go into this crowd control that you've come out of Rogue, you know, we talked about it before the game, a lot of crowd control with the Celeste and Glaive, and they played it really, really well.
Yeah, they certainly did, and it was in the end a Rogue game, but a lot of these fights exceptionally close from both of these teams, and we saw like Hammy especially doing a huge amount of damage in these fights. He couldn't be the focus for the side of Echo Fox, and because of that, he was able to just hammer away throughout.
Yeah, it was just the constant pressure. I mean, this Grace just putting out the distraction that was needed in order to solidify this, preventing the recalls, and when you have that Kraken fighting away, it is so close to finishing off the game here, and that's where it comes through. That final little hit is all that is needed.
Yeah, absolutely, and Hammy even getting a little bit of swag on there as well with the cheeky little recall before ending the game. I think in that series, I think for the heroic play at the end, just to finish out the series 2-0, Hammy gets the MVP from me on that one. He was doing huge damage throughout the fights, constant threat for the enemy team, and then obviously the flashy play at the end actually ends the game for his team.
Yeah, Hammy played incredibly well, but this is another one of those situations where it could have gone to anyone. Like, all of these teams are stepping up in such a big way. There isn't really just one standout player that's hard carrying the entire team like we've seen from some teams in the past. It's a full-on team effort, and they are really stepping up to the table.
Yeah, any final thoughts on this series then? Like, what can these teams take away? Because I feel like this scoreline in the end does not really represent the series.
Well, it's really Pond the Original in the jungle. He's now perfect on Celeste here from Challengers and Challenge Battles, and he's found ways to pull out heroes that are a little bit off meta, but are great at countering the composition that they're facing. So I'm a real huge fan of Pond right now. He's really helped carry this Rogue roster to the next level that's been really needed for them, and they're looking really poised here. They've got a good shot now as they collect these extra points here to position themselves going into tomorrow. Should be able to have a legitimate chance at getting back into the Vainglory 8.
Yeah, for sure. Let's take a look at the points at the end of our second series now, because there's been a couple of series off stream as well. And a very important series to talk about is the fact that Hollywood Hammers have 2-0'd Immortals off stream. That is honestly the upset of the day so far. I'm devastated we couldn't get that on stream. I don't think anybody would have been expecting Hammers to take that series. So now Immortals actually with a 2-0 win and a 2-0 loss. I think a lot of people kind of expecting them to walk on through this tournament, and now suddenly everything's just a little bit up in the air because there are 4 teams on 2 points.
I absolutely cannot wait to get to go home tonight and watch that series, because I was awestruck when we heard that come through. We're like, wait, is that real? Like, are you sure? You're 100% sure that you have the information correct.
It's the fact that Hammers have had honestly a very weak season so far, right? That's not even an opinion. That's just statistical, right? But then the 2-0, that's the bit that's surprising to me. You would think that it would at least be a 3-game series, but we'll have to see how Immortals do in their third series. That'll be tomorrow. Right now, we're jumping into our third and final series of the day here on the stream. It is going to be Tribe going up against the Hammers themselves. We'll see this magical performance that's suddenly coming out from them. It is starting all over. Archaic and Playboy Afro is the squad that's managing to make some waves here in the challenge battles. I mean, what is it? Who is it that really stands out to you, Dragonborn? Like, is it starting all over? He's kind of, I feel like he's the guy that Has the
It
biggest
always
reputation.
It starts with starting all over, absolutely. He is a fantastic hyper carry, but he is someone you can focus on if you are aware of like where his positioning is going to be. You know, if you're kind of going to get an idea of how he wants to play that game, you could actually, you know, shut him out of a game, and that shuts down. And it has been shutting down the Hammers roster actually. So again, we haven't seen the win they had against Immortals, but I have to imagine that's quite a stellar performance by starting all over. This matchup specifically, though, I'm really excited because Tribe's been a little struggling here of late.
Yeah, they certainly have. Let's take a look at the lineup for Tribe. They're going to be the opponents for the Hammers. E36, Mixi, and Status. Now, these guys in themselves, these are not exactly small names. I mean, Mixi, like on the TSM of old, Liberation X, like one of the huge players from North America. And then you've got E36 and Status. Obviously, brothers. There's a huge amount of synergy there. But so far in the challenge battles, not really able to make that crazy impactful big.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a struggle for them, but now with Mixi added to this lineup, they really feel like this is going to be their opportunity to get into the Vainglory 8. They actually took a game off of Immortals in the Challengers, and you brought them all the way to a Game 3 when they went head-to-head. Took down Rogue in the Challengers at one point, and then obviously ended up falling to them in the third-place game. But this is a team that is one of those, it's the consistency becomes the issue once again. When they're on their game, when they're all firing on all cylinders, they can beat the best. But can they do that regularly enough to not only get themselves into the Vainglory 8, but even if they want to look beyond that, to be able to compete with the rest?
And you bring up the question of consistency. It's especially important considering they lost earlier today 2-0 to Echo Fox, and then Echo Fox have gone on to lose 2-0 to Rogue. That, to me, spells out that this is potentially the weakest team coming out from the Challengers. They are the third seed. Do we think that's a fair statement here, or is it just a matter of inconsistency? Is it a matter of incredibly high highs for this team, but also incredibly low lows?
Yeah, I think you're actually right. This roster has a star-studded group of guys who can perform at the highest level, but they've struggled a little bit. When we take a look at just Status Big, for instance, in the jungle, he has more often than not gotten bodied. He usually does not outfarm in jungle CS specifically against the opposing jungle. So that's a challenge that he needs to be able to focus. He needs to be aggressive. We're used to seeing how aggressive Status could be in his past play. Something maybe is off a little bit. Mixi's another great example. You know, they'll win games, but they may not win it even through outfarming, and that's a problem because that can definitely be a slippery slope.
Yeah, it's once you lose control at that point, it's very difficult to regain it once again. It's time to start to talk about the draft and get on into this series. What's the expectation here, Bacon? What are you anticipating seeing from these two teams?
I'm anticipating some aggressive junglers coming out from Tribe, especially. Like Dragonborn was mentioning, Status is known for these aggressive early junglers and building a lead for himself. He has to be able to do that in this series. Otherwise, they will not be able to get the points that they need to try and qualify for the Vainglory 8. And again, I'm mostly just really looking forward to seeing what Hammers are going to bring to the table, because if they were able to 2-0 Immortals, then they must have just figured something out in this past week.
This has to be a different Hammers to what we've been seeing in the Vainglory 8 so far. I'm exceptionally excited to see what they have to bring to the table. Banning away Lyra to start things off. This is already a fairly different ban strategy to what we've seen at a lot of the teams so far, Dragonborn.
This is interesting. I mean, if they do end up getting the Baron ban, they got an easy Grace pick, and Lyra's already off the table. So that does force Tribe into something like a Vox. They're going to actually ban the Grace. Hammers is going to have their choosing of what carry they want. Unless they decide to go, they could go with the Vox here or the Baron. Both are very strong laners for starting all over.
Yeah, lots of available options right here. Obviously, if you go for that Baron, there is an Idris available for your opponents. There are ways to play around the Baron, but realistically, even with the Idris, it's not often that we see Baron shut down. You know, even when you get that counter pick, it's still very easy to just run away with things on that Baron. Glaive going to be the first pick, though. This isn't a first pick we see often.
Not at all. Definitely a bit of a surprise here with Baron available and Idris to go for the Glaive instead. Definitely speaks volumes to Hammers either wanting to heavily prioritize this or feeling like it's something that can counter the Baron and or the Idris.
Yeah, this is really kind of like a soft flex pick where they're not trying to give away their composition. Starting all over, by the way, is a fantastic glaive, and we've seen it banned away from him several times. Baron's going to come out on Tribe. This has been Mixi's strongest laner, so it's a little worrisome for Hammers to allow that over to Tribe so easily.
Yeah, not banning the Idris, though. That's an interesting one coming out there. They are going to ban away the Kestrel, so that Idris will still be open as a pick available for Hammers later on in the draft. What do we think to that? Is it important that you have to ban the Idris there, or is that not as important as I'm giving it credit for?
I think because of the glaive, the Idris is a really strong counter to Baron when it's a weapon Idris, not so much when it's a crystal Idris. So because the glaive is already there, I feel like Tribe are going to be taking the risk in saying that we're pretty sure it's going to be a weapon glaive because no one is running that CP cooldown glaive that we used to see. So I think they're just going to take the risk and let the Idris go through and assume that Hammers are not looking to pick that one up.
All right, well, Grumpjaw will be found once as well. And that, I mean, we're already looking at, like, the start of the season. These were the two power picks, right? Baron and Grumpjaw. We've seen Grumpjaw significantly less successful later on in the season, but still, if you can use it correctly, can have huge impact on games. Idris is going to come through in the end alongside that glaive.
Well, they could be flexing this glaive as a support, which we've seen less and less. But like I said, it's a soft flex, so they could have done this and maybe baited in. I'm surprised just out of caution we didn't see Tribe ban the Idris there. That's interesting.
It could still be a CP Idris, or it could even be the double weapon. We've seen more and more teams starting to pick up the double weapon. Usually, oh, well, that's gonna put an end to that one.
Now, it could be Captain Glaive, or we have seen Captain Koshka. Like, I'm just saying, TSM did it, and we've seen a lot of other teams copy TSM. I think it's most likely the Captain Glaive, though. I am kind of memeing just a little bit. How do you finish out the composition with Tribe here?
I think you go for something that can run as your captain instead of the Grumpjaw. You don't really want the Grumpjaw to be the captain. They are going to pick up the Arden. I really hope that this ends up being a double weapon from Tribe because, again, the Crystal Power Grumpjaw just does not have the same sort of effect once you get into the late game. And if you have this double weapon, you should be able to just run over the Idris and the Koshka and even the Glaive. Like, all three of them, none of them are super tanky. You have a little bit of durability from the Glaive, and whichever one decides to run as the captain will have a little bit of durability, but other than that, the double weapon, I feel like, should run really well into this composition.
All right, so very aggressive early game. What's your read on this draft, Dragonborn? Where do you think these teams are going to be going?
I think Tribe got backed into an interesting hole. They've got the Baron, so late game is their priority. Arden should be able to create separation, but now that's kind of them playing more of like, all right, what are we going to be thrown at? Like, what are they throwing at us? Let's try to play off that. Honestly, with the Baron, I think Tribe has this strong laner that Mixi's played very well. And if they continue that trend, I think they're going to be able to have a decent time against Hammers. But this draft from Hammers is very unique. We're not sure who's going to be the support yet, and it could be something that counters this Baron well.
All right, well, we'll see if they can counter the Baron. That's been a question on many Vainglory 8 teams. And speaking of Vainglory 8, that is the hashtag you can use to get in touch on social media. Let us know who you want to take this series. Can Tribe get themselves a series on the board? Hammers have upset Immortals. Let's see if they can get a second win under their belt. Let's pass it to the casters.
Thanks, guys. My name is George, joined by AJ, third series of the night. And that news, AJ, that Hammers have beaten Immortals 2-0, the day of upsets, clearly, as they do get onto the fold versus Tribe Gaming. Needs to unmute his mic, though. That would be the best course of action thus far. But I will carry on.
There we go. There we go. All right.
He got it.
So, what I was saying with a lot of passion and enthusiasm was the fact that it would be really quite insane, or it was really quite insane, rather, that they took down Immortals after we saw Immortals earlier today perform so outstandingly well. I mean, it's not as if Immortals looked weaker than anticipated heading into today. So Hammers, I think, sound very scary. How they look, we're about to see. Tribe, this is a strong team, though. Let's not rule them out. Starting all over, already taking a lot of damage.
Oh, jump jets forward, starting all over. Might just go down here. Status is going to chase him down and find the first blood. Okay, he's going to follow up with another kill, though. They're going to trade 1-4 on Afro. It's going to afterburn in, just get stunned up. Mixi, though, is just hammering away at him. I've got a feeling Afro may have DC'd. That is extremely unfortunate Mixi picks up the kill though, and Archaic is going to base their Tribe. Take that fight 2-1.
Yeah, very nice play by Tribe going in that early when you're playing with Baron and Arden is not necessarily that expected, but it can work very nicely when you're backed up by that weapon Grumpjaw, who does so much work early in the game. Hammers, we just asked the question, or posed the question, are they going to be able to have that performance from earlier again? Did they really look that amazing against Immortals? Well, in this game, already you can see them maybe overextending a little bit, perhaps not realizing just how risky things are going to get if they do. Tribe does have a lot of damage here.
Oh, they do. No, Baron as well. We spoke about it, or at least the desk spoke about it. I'm not going to take credit for that one. They said if they get to late game, this double weapon power from Mixi and Status could run all over Hammers, in all honesty. There's not very many tanky members. With Afro going in this glaive, you're going to imagine he's going to build a bit of armor, yes, but Archaic's going to be in a lot of trouble, and same with starting if Mixi can just free hit them.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely something to consider here. Oh, Status.
Status in a lot of trouble. He's Archaic even. He's got to early death. E36 caught out though. Nowhere to go as that Arden does end up falling here to Afro. Takes revenge from earlier. Status is going to just dash back. Oh, hangry over the wall. He's going to steal it. He got it. He's got that little bit of healing, but they might just run him down for that one. That was a little bit over aggressive, and already both teams at each other's throats.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. Lots of aggression from these teams, but perhaps not as carefully checked as it needs to be sometimes. And by the same token, the other teams perhaps not anticipating it or reacting appropriately in all situations. This is definitely a game where both comps can do this kind of...
Mixi just gets
denied.
Redirected by Afro. That afterburn was something of pure beauty. Now E36 is just left lost.
Yeah, that was really, really solid stuff there. I love the fact that he just went extremely aggressive and tried to make that play happen, but at the same time, make sure you gotta wait for backup from your teammates, right? Very, very risky to just go for it like that.
Goodness. Well, 4-2. We are 6 kills in at 4 minutes. This is what I wanted to see throughout the couple of games. Afro, though, he's found Status in his jungle. He does end up securing at least one of those smaller back camps. Now E36 is going to use that Vanguard to get out of there, but starting all over, doing what he should do, is just taking the backs now of Tribe. But this is the point in the game where as soon as that Grumpjaw picks up that tension bow, it's all fight. And in fact, starting all over is going to meet the brunt of that damage. That'll be Status just almost taking him out. Does dash over the wall, but he's in a lot of trouble. It's going to get flared out. Mixi in a lot of trouble though. Twirly death is going to be enough to secure the kill. And now Archaic actually decides they want a kill on the board for themselves. E36 and Status, they want to try and find something here. Status dashing over that wall. Archaic taking a fair bit of damage. That auto attack will end up finishing him off. A 1-for-1 trade overall.
Rather the different pace when you look at this game with the Koshka compared to the one earlier on, I have to say. It seems to be doing a lot more work, but that being said, again, you gotta be careful against Status, who's got a lot of damage early on here, going a little bit too deep. I believe he stole away the camp as well. Hammers, how are they fighting this? I
don't know how they're fighting this, because Tribe is easily dealing with him. There comes the Hangry, there comes the Fountain Teed starting all over up. Afro still chopping away. Okay, wants an entrance into that fight. He finds Mixi. Mixi's just going to get run down. Twirly death. He hasn't got Yummy Catnip Frenzy, but look at Status now on starting all over. Just gets the kill. We're 9 kills in for 5 minutes. I can't get my head around it, AJ. I'm not going to lie to you. Something is going on in this game. They just want blood. No CS. Only kills from only kill gold from kills. That is. They even lose my words here.
Yeah, that was an interesting fight. I feel like Hammers wasn't always all on the same page. Excuse me. They were going for lots of different targets. They're trying to pressure on Status. They're trying to pressure on Mixi. I think in that juncture, you kind of just need to commit to one, except that maybe it's going to be a trade because you're the one starting a fight when maybe you shouldn't be. And try and find something off the back of that trade, but they didn't really. They went for the whole pie. They tried to have their cake and eat it too. It's too much.
Way too much, especially for that Grumpjaw. Although he has found starting again, has got the stuff available. He's found him in his belly. He's going to now dash back. Afro trying to relocate him, but it's not going to work. Status underneath the turret is going to be able to dash away. That fountain being really big for them, but Status is still chasing. Now Mixi's going to get jumped on. Archaic finds the back line. Status can't find the last basic attack on starting all over. Cannot secure that kill, but still hunting for more. He's still a hungry Grumpjaw after all. Playboy Afro does manage to get out alive. Same with starting all over and managed to make it back to base. And now Archaic is going on to Mixi. Nice use of the reflex block there to delete all of that damage, but Archaic still going to find him. After that, Yummy Cantic Frenzy did end up landing. Status is going to dive on in though and swallow a kitty cat hole.
You know, right before that fight, I was going to say the big difference for these two teams is that on the side of Hammers, you know, Archaic's going out of the back line, but he can't actually find the kills. On the side of Tribe, Status going in the back line, but he's able to do the damage. That fight for the first time kind of reversed it. We'll see though, Status wants more.
Oh, he always wants a fight here, but he isn't going to be able to find it this time. Starting all over. He's been base. I think he's been back to base more time than I've had hot dinners at this point, AJ.
He may well have been. He's certainly doing a lot of that right now.
Well, we'll see what Tribe want to do next. Mixi has got that Sorrow Blade. You can imagine he's working towards a tension bow or maybe a breaking point for that matter. Archaic's going to be able to steal, well, at least try to steal one of those camps away from Status, but he is a big hungry Grumpjaw and will just chew them up for himself. Now, let's look where they want to fight. I mean, they've been fighting already so much, and that's perfect for Archaic, but Mixi is just getting more and more fed by the second here.
He is indeed. Mixi on that Baron, you got to keep in mind how scary things can get when a Baron gets out of hand in the early game. We've actually seen it plenty of times from Hammers, of all people. So they know. They know what they're dealing with here. That might actually be why they're trying so hard to make plays happen, right? I do think that they need to be afraid of some of these dicey situations, though, because if Mixi gets out of hand, they don't have an answer.
Well, they do not. I mean, they've got... I mean, the only answer I can think of, they can just jump all in on the Baron, hope he dies, and then back off. But with E36 for backup, even Status to kind of sit in the front line can be a very dangerous situation for them. And late. Oh, here's Mixi, though. That tension bow doing a lot of damage. Someone gets stuffed already. See you later. Yummy Cantic Frenzy is going to get completely blocked. Playboy Afro underneath the turret, but already E36 falls. Iron Cannon's going to come down. There comes the leap forward as well from Mixi. Can't quite find the kill on Playboy Afro. And there comes Archaic just dashing, dipping, ducking, darting around. Starting all over, gets jumped on, finally goes down. And if only you had a flare over that wall, Mixi, that could have been another couple of kills. But only trading 1-for-1 in that messy engagement, Archaic and Playboy Afro get out alive.
Wow, what an intense fight. You can really... This is a very high-octane game, and I love how risky both teams are playing. But man, at a certain point, one of these fights is going to be past the 10-minute mark and actually matter a bit more. Like right now, these fights, yes, they matter, but... Look at the gold. 200 between them, right? The fights are pretty even, etc., etc. The problem is later, there's going to be objectives that you can leverage. So I'd expect to see actually things calm down a little bit sometime soon. I think it kind of needs to. Although Mixi, he's already hitting for 418 crits on starting. I think Hammers are definitely the ones in a bit of a dicier position.
Yeah, most definitely. The stars are twinkling, but this time it looks like Tribe are getting theirs on the Hall of Fame. Hammers, yeah, they did win out Immortals here, AJ, but can they win out against Tribe? A bit more of a scrappier team. Starting all over has been stuffed again, and this is going to be Mixi's playground. Starting all over jumps into the back line, but already almost falls. Gauntlet's going to get lane bare. There comes the ultimate from the Koshka. Can't not quite find a kill onto Mixi, but starting all over goes down regardless. Status is still going to chase Playboy Afro out of there. Archaic still trying to find an exit. Iron Cannon's going to come down. It's not going to quite find the kill, but Status doesn't find the kill on Afro. Cannot quite land the last basic attack on Archaic, who does just manage to scamper out alive.
Man, all right, that's what I was talking about. Mixi, he's starting to really just do a bit too much damage for any real response to come in from Hammers. It's very difficult to get on top of him. You've got Grumpjaw and Arden protecting him. They offer a lot of offense in the early game. You know, Arden can catapult Grumpjaw in. Grumpjaw's got a lot of damage. But really what matters is that later on here, we are seeing just, you know, straight Mixi doing the work. His team's backing him up.
You know what's the best thing about playing a hyper carry? When your team sits on top of you and make sure you don't die. That is the best thing about Baron right now. And Mixi has done just that. He's 2-3-3, with Status having a majority of the kills. Has even gone more burst damage. He's got that aftershock in his back pocket as well. That peeling camp will go over to Status, and now Hammers maybe looking for a plate underneath this turret. Mixi prioritizing that early reflex block, and rightfully so. He's just going to be building up more and more damage. And Hammers now in a dicey situation, like you mentioned earlier. Even infusions coming out this early is something we're used to seeing now, AJ. That Status wants to fight, and he wants to fight now.
Man, it's been a while since I've seen Grumpjaw just wrecking people.
Oh, Sayers might just get a little bit wrecked there. The player Afro is going to get eaten once again. That's an iron cannon onto 2 people. Mixi in the front line now this time. Still manages to kill 1, though. How is he still alive? There we go. Starting all over finally finds the kill. He was so low for so long, but finally Hammers nail him down to the floor. Now Tribe. They are on a 2v1. Status very low. Save E36. Archaic goes over the wall. That is a nice gauntlet just to make sure Starting can't finish off that kill. Archaic almost followed that one up as well. Status going in. Just one-shots him. Archaic goes in. He finds the double kill, though, with the twirly death. Ace for Hammers just about as Mixi spawns.
Oh man, I know that they really wanted to pick up a kill there, but I can't help but feel like waiting the 2 seconds you would have needed for Vanguard if you're going to make that play would have been the right thing to do. It was very overly bold coming in from the side of Tribe, and you know this could end up really biting them in the butt. They were in a great position. Now, though, we're seeing Archaic get a huge influx of gold. He's picking up a broken myth. They've got pressure on the map. They can get vision down. This is how games get out of hand when you're ahead and you kind of lose that lead.
Well, the old tale goes, AJ. And there's money in the bank, playing Baron's pretty easy. And now Tribe. That's how it goes. That's the old wives' tale. Now Tribe are going to push down this lane as they make that Baron play once again. He is more than enough protected at this moment in time. That Monocle as well is going to provide a lot of extra damage, a lot of extra oomph. Their first initial engage. Now, what can Hammers really do, AJ? What can they actually do to follow this game up? Because they are managing 5 picks. You can see the score, 10-10. Turrets, 4-4 left. Even the gold, just about even. But it just seems like Tribe are just getting an edge in these engagements.
They are for the time being. They gotta keep doing that, though. And that last fight was a good example of how Hammers can punish, mistakes. Mixi, yeah, sure. He's on 3 items. It's only 13 this end. That's pretty crazy. But at the same time, Akashka's still Akashka. Akashka's still going to burst you down very, very fast. I want to see E36 focus more on keeping Mixi safe. I kind of want to see the same thing from Status. There's plenty of frontline targets he can take down without having to jump on the back line and try and deal with Starting.
Ooh, there's Status. He does gobble up, starting all over again. There's a permanent illy in his belly at the moment. Gauntlet does come down. Mixi on the right side of the fight this time. Archaic is going to get a twirly death. He's going to find Status. The first blood goes over to Hammers. And now can they do anything more? There we go. They chew through the team eventually. And Ace comes through as quick as you can blink. And now Hammers are going to force this lane. They're going to force the gold miner. And these are the fights they were looking for.
Yeah, Hammers has firmly managed to get themselves back in the driver's seat here. This is the kind of explosive thing that can happen, as I said, when you've got something like that, Koshka. It really has bought a lot of space for Hammers to allow Starting all over to get the target he needs to, for Playboy Afro to find good knockbacks without being necessarily the main target priority of Tribe and just dying straight away. So, yeah, really nice stuff, although Starting getting eaten like that.
That's another stuff. Starting all over has been chewed up once more. He's just going to get bursted out here. I think Mixi's going to be able to find that fast auto attack. Nope. Status steals it away. Oh, man. Scumbag jungler. That's what that is. You want Mixi ahead, not Status. That's what I say as a laner anyway. Mixi now just farming up this lane, and that Kraken has spawned. I mean, Starting all over's got a 15-second death timer here. We'll see if they want to make anything, any more use of that. I mean, Status does look like he's actually rotating towards this Kraken now, and Baron's going to start it up too. So Tribe, they might just take this one away for free.
They might. Honestly, I don't know if it's going to be easy for Hammers to return fire here. Archaic and Playboy do have the ability to maybe just go for the steal, though. They have certainly a lot of damage to work with very quickly.
Oh, we'll see who goes down. Iron Cannon does come through. That's a steal. No, it's not. Tribe actually secure. I got ahead of myself. Now Playboy Arrow is a little bit ahead of himself as well. Fountain's going to get popped from Tribe, but guess who has spawned? It's Starting all over. Can he make anything work here? Archaic caught between E36 and Status, but does manage to just pounce away on one of those minions. Tribe are all going to recall now as the Kraken does march down towards the lane just to refill their health bars.
All right, let's see if after their health comes back, they can actually get to this Kraken in time. I don't really think they're going to be able to. And at this point, that kind of makes this maybe a bit of a mistake to go for the Kraken. You're giving away 500 gold, and you're getting nothing off the back of it, except for pressure on the map. Like, if
man, Starting all over. He has no chance. Gauntlet goes down as well. He's completely isolated. Exactly what Tribe's composition want to do. Starting all over is going to go down. And I can imagine it's going to go over to Status. There we go. Steals the kill again. But hey ho, McShee's going to still be pretty happy at this point. Left pretty much uncontested at the back lines. Playing their composition to a T. They're going to tank up that turret. They got no worries. Iron Cannon comes down. There goes another one. They're going to tie up the score 3-3 in terms of turrets.
Wow, starting all over getting eaten there was real bad. I think he might not have had Aegis. Is certainly on cooldown now, so I think probably he didn't have access to that one. But at the same time, where was the Crucible from Playboy? Where was the positioning? Didn't need to be standing on that side of Kraken to be hitting it, right? Very, very dicey stuff. Hammers and Tribe going very back and forth in this game. I certainly am still of the belief that either team could just win a fight and then win the game at this point. Is getting pretty late next Kraken spawn, honestly, if they win a convincing fight, and most of the fights have been convincing, they've been like 3 kills or what have you, then a big push is going to come across. So either team can do it. It's all about getting good vision down. McShee having his 4th item here is big, but he's a little bit behind on like getting his boot super high and getting a lot of defense. He will die very quickly to Archaic if Archaic can get on top of him.
That's a big if, I think. And if we look back at the earlier game, do we want to look back? I don't know if they actually want to start a fight. Or starting all over does dash forward. Status is going to go in. Does use that hangry. That's a lot of damage. That's already a Crucible popped, actually. As might be actually pretty big. McShee still on the back line, just kiting for days. There comes the War Treads. Here comes Archaic on the back line now. 20 down from 3 people. There comes the Mechanic Frenzy. He's going to get completely blocked. That 4 or 5 HP does him wonders of good. And that'll mean Status just leaves him completely dead on the floor. And now starting all over, just pushing forward. Hammers come up really big, or in fact, Archaic does. Perfect itemization, it seems, just to deal with McShee.
Felt like Archaic came out of nowhere at the end of the fight there. Still full health. Status not maybe doing... oh, there we go. He's going to be going down too. Status maybe not doing his job entirely of actually either zoning out Archaic or putting enough pressure on the front line to help get the kill. I think he thought that McShee had starting all over. He decided to reposition, refocus, and did it a bit too early. As a result, McShee just didn't have the support he needed. Tribe were not playing that fight necessarily as a cohesive unit the way that they needed to, and now Kraken is at risk of going the way of Hammers.
Kraken's on the board for Hammers. Oh my goodness, will he ever stop eating people? Apparently he will, because he's just going to die. Hammers, they take out 1. I mean, E36 has got 5 minutes left on the counter. This is a free Kraken for them. You can see McShee running with his tail between his legs, or his rocket launcher on his back, as it were. And now Hammers, they take the Kraken. They're going to march down the lane. McShee, didn't want to show yourself. You were a little bit caught out there, buddy. He's going to just leap over the wall, but starting all over is going to follow him. That is a very, very big misstep there.
Idris is really good in the Baron just because of the ultimate. You know, if they're trying to jump away from you, good luck with that. You're going to follow real easily. They actually pick up status 2 here. This is really rough. I think, you know, a big difference here, right? In the Kraken pushes, Hammers did not need to back first. They haven't given up anything to actually take this, and now they can get even more.
Exactly what they're doing. That Kraken's sitting pretty healthy as well. Hammers are going to be pretty happy with themselves. Status wants more, just eating, starting all over. Can he deliver him to the base? Yes, he can. Can starting all over get out? Almost goes down. E36 popping those War Treads, just punching away, but it's not going to be enough. That fountain's going to be there to heal him up. Nice gauntlet. Stuns 1, stuns 2, stuns 3. Tribe, they still have a way into this game. That Kraken still knocking on their turrets, though. It will go down eventually, but that's going to be a lot of damage to their base. It's completely opened up now, and this might just be Hammer's game to take.
Playboy Afro must be so triggered right now. He used Echo to get a second afterburn onto someone so that starting all over could actually leave the enemy sanctuary, and then he still dies. That's brutal, man. But still, I mean, great plays coming out of Hammers. Yeah, you know, some starting all over died at some point, but what's on the map, right? Like, what does Tribe get back for that exchange? They don't get anything. There's no Kraken on the map. They're very far away, and it's very unsafe for them to go into the enemy jungle, steal away camps, or maybe go for the sentry. Starting Over's only got 7 seconds left on his respawn, too. Things are resetting very nicely for Hammers here. They've got momentum to close this game out. Even though McShee has scaled very effectively, I really don't think he's getting the level of backup from his team that they need in fights. You know, Status, he's going very aggressive. Like, he's using Stuffed to set up fights rather than set up McShee. And at this point in the game, setting up McShee is just more important.
When we know you've got the kill status, we know. Everybody does know that. But McShee, he's the late game damage. Now, will they be able to make another engagement here? We'll have to wait and see as the Afterman does come over the wall. Status is going to find starting all over once again. Mixi free hitting on the back line once again, though. Arcade just doesn't go down instantly. Mixi, might be a big problem for him. I'm counting down onto 2-3 people. And there goes Playboy Afro out of the fight. Starting all over still in it, though. In it to win it. Status is just going to get chomped up. And now E36 and starting all over with the Crystal Century. Finish him off. Not quite. Tribe and Hammers, they do end up trading 2 for 2. And Mixi had the perfect setup there, but starting all over comes up big.
That feel when the only reason you don't get a 1v3 ace at the end is because the sentry's wailing on you. That's brutal. Starting over could have had that if not for the sentry. I think the damage from E36 was minuscule and very, very much not enough to actually get the kill. That being said, starting all over, he's actually going in and keeping the pressure on here. I don't see him getting turret, though. We got 10 seconds left. Maybe.
AJ, please.
Oh my
he's going to get the turret. There we go. There goes the crystal as well. Will he be able to do it? Mixi's back up. You are correct. E36 just trying all his might. Can starting all over do it. Yes! He dives over the crystal, gets the last hit, and that will be Hammers taking the first game in this best of 3.
So to be clear, I didn't expect him to get the turret, not because I didn't think he could take it, but because I didn't think he'd try with Mixi coming up so soon. But he did, and he won the game. Right on.
Underestimation of Hammers. The stars are in their eyes.
Immortals did it, maybe.
Oh my goodness. They run over Immortals, and it was a close game versus Tribe, but what can game number 2? What has that got in store for us? My heart needs a little bit of rest. Munch, you can take it away.
You know what, guys? I don't think Tribe expected that to happen either. They were not ready for that final push, and it worked. They managed to end the game in the end. Hammers taking this one, and this game was the definition of an absolute bloodbath. Like, I mean, where do we even start with that?
I don't even know. That was unbelievable. I mean, starting all over, having the wherewithal to go for the end of there. It's so risky. It's so risky to do, but it pays off.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with some of these earlier game fights. Dragon Ball, do you want to run me through a couple of these replays? Because this was so messy.
Oh, this was a back and forth, an absolute brawler. We saw a lot of really, really close plays. Archaic and Afro were fantastic, actually. Starting all over, not playing really well for most of the early part of the game. Baron obviously pretty tough, even though going into an Idris. But there was some fights, very timely fountains here to keep the team alive. You see Afro right here. They get very low. He's able to fountain just in the nick of time and able to pull in. This is basically avoiding what was near ace, although they do end up losing that fight somewhat in trade. Here again, these gauntlets by E36 were fantastic. They were really, really well placed almost in every single fight. But Archaic was unbelievable this game. I mean, he really played one of the best games we've seen all season.
Yeah, Archaic has definitely stepped up for these challenge battles, and Hammers now with a 3rd win on the board. If they can finish off this series, they'll be looking at a 4-0 scoreline, which definitely, like my personal opinion, I was not expecting them to come in with this ridiculously great performance into the challenge battles.
Not at all. They were one of the teams I had pegged to be knocked out of the Vainglory 8. I did not expect them to put up much of a fight, really, against these challenger teams, but they have completely proved us wrong. I mean, this was such an insane game. So close in this final fight. Everyone was clumped up. I thought for sure that the Baron was just going to go to town, and he did. I mean, he took out everyone but starting all over, and then starting all over, again, just having the wherewithal to not recall, to stick around, to go and get himself the treant, and then able to end the game. I don't know how you can comfortably make that decision to go for that play, but it pays off.
I mean, I don't think the question is how you can make that comfortably. I don't think you can ever make that comfortably. I think that is probably the most uncomfortable decision of your career at that point, but he made it and it worked, and now they are 1-0 up in the series. So now looking towards the second game in the series, is there anything you can change for the side of Tribe here? Because I don't feel like this was Tribe making a mistake. I feel like this was Hammers just taking tiny advantages each time and eventually turning that into more.
I feel like there is something that Tribe can change, and that was this Grumpjaw pick in the jungle and the way that they built it. They went for this on-hit Grumpjaw that we've seen a lot of teams try and run with it doesn't have much impact beyond the early game. Like the mid game, it kind of has a little bit, but then once you get to late game, it falls off so heavily. And I want to see Status on something that can get an early game lead and snowball it. Like something like a Koshka, for example. I would love to see Status on, because I feel like if Status steps up, that's the biggest problem for Tribe right now. Is Status, did not have a CS lead, did not have a huge kill lead. He got beat in the jungle by Archaic at pretty much every turn, and that's something that needs to change for Tribe going forward.
I mean, what are your thoughts on this upcoming draft, Dragon Ball? Where do you want them to go?
You really gave Tribe a pretty good recipe for success there. You gave them the Baron, and Mixi's pretty good on that Baron. I mean, starting all over and company, the whole team at Hammers showed up here today, and that's a really scary thing. I really do think that, if you get the Baron again, obviously you take it, but Tasty's absolutely right. It's got to start in the jungle. Status needs to step up his game. His team really is counting on him at this point, and he needs to be that over-aggressive, sometimes focusing on kills versus CS, and it can cost him in the late game. You're not really taking that gold lead. You're keeping it too close. So this draft, I'm going to be really watching on the jungle for Status. I think he needs to step up to something a little bit stronger.
We'll see whether he can step up on this one. It's definitely feels that's got to be a really difficult loss to come back for Tribe, because it was such a close game, and if I was a Tribe player right now, I'd feel a little bit robbed coming off of the back of that loss, and now they've got to kind of reset that mentality, get to a fresh state of mind coming into this second game of the series. And you can see that they're very clearly building an entire plan for the draft, not just trying to figure out this first ban, but looking at where they anticipate this draft going, using a lot of that bonus time to plan things out here.
Or they're not connected to the draft client.
That either. We'll have to wait and see. I would hope that
usually the first ban, if it takes this long, it's because of an issue with the getting connected to the client, but it's looking more and more likely the further this clock ticks down. But like you said, though,
they were just thinking about it.
Wow. Okay.
There you go. Turns out some teams do think about their draft pick.
That is a long time to spend.
But as I say, it's important to it's not just considering your first ban, it's considering the repercussions of your first ban and what your actions are going to be because of that. Dragon Ball, what are your thoughts on these two bans?
Well, we talked about the Baron pick. I think Tribe still takes the Baron pick here. I think it's the right call as well. We may then see, of course, Hammers pick up the Idris again. Starting all over actually struggled into the Baron with the Idris play, but late game, it did start to feel its pressure, so maybe that's the risk. Clearly, Tribe is thinking about this. They did run out of time. I think we're going to be getting a reset here.
Okay. RIP, draft client. He will be missed. All right, well, at least those first two bans will be locked in. We'll restart this one, but the Grace and the Lyra will be the locked-in first bans, and then we should be able to get things on the go once again. What would you anticipate this first pick being? Like, would you be bold enough to pick up the Baron here?
I think they need to be. As Dragon Ball was mentioning, they're not going to, though. They're going to go for the Vox. I think the Baron would have been the right pick. Mixi's very good on that hero. If they answer with the Idris for starting, like Dragon Ball was mentioning, in that last game, starting over was struggling against the Baron. So I'm a little bit confused as to why they didn't go for it, but we'll see if they can make the Vox work a little bit better.
Yeah, obviously confident that they have an answer to the Baron, allowing that to potentially go over to Hammers, but the Kestrel will be the pickup alongside a Catherine ban. But Hammers very quickly go through that pick and that ban.
Yeah, they definitely feel like they were totally okay with Mixi playing the Baron, which was a little bit of a surprise. But that being said, once the Vox came out, I'd like to see this Kestrel pick. This could be flexed either way, but, starting all over and Archaic are both very, very competent Kestrel players.
Looks like it is going to be starting all over on the Kestrel, because with the Samuel, you have to assume that will be Archaic's pick in the jungle. So Baron not going to get picked up at all here in this draft with the Celeste selection for Status, assumedly for Status. I don't see that going into the lane with a jungle Vox. Seems
unlikely. Now the captain picks the final two. That's something we don't see all too often, that both final picks are the captains. Finn going to be the lock-in for Tribe, and now Hammers, they just have to finish out this composition. They have an entire minute of time still available to work with as they want to finish this one out.
This is an interesting support pick because you really have a poke-heavy composition. Kestrel and Samuel. Finn's a great front line if you've got some people trying to push through you. You've got like a melee jungler, but with this range, poke-heavy jungle and lane, I feel like Finn's just going to run into a lot of trouble here throughout the game.
Well, that's going to be fine, though, for Tribe. If you have Finn just being this huge front line, Samuel's not going to be able to get damage past him. Assuming that Vox and Celeste are both staying behind him, the Samuel or the Kestrel are going to have difficulty getting onto the Vox and the Celeste. I think both teams might kind of run into a similar issue because it is all range in this one. There really isn't a whole lot of hard engage for either team.
Yeah, it's all very defensive on both sides of the ball. We could have a bit of a stalemate when we get towards the mid/late game on who wants to engage and how you actually go about engaging. So what are our thoughts on the early game then? What is the plan for these two teams right at the start of the game, Dragonborn?
Oh, I think you bully the Celeste and Finn in the jungle right away, and I think we could know Archaic and Afro can do that. I think if you do that, put Celeste behind, you definitely give success for Hammers, but the Celeste play scales great. We've seen him play Pond. The original just showed us, and he showed us many times before. I do like the Celeste pick, but you've got to be extra careful. Finn, we kind of expect those forced accords to be blocked, but Afro, we haven't seen him go up against it a lot. If he misses one of those, that could be a huge tipping point for Tribe as well.
Okay. Yeah, and with that level 2 power spike, it's going to be so important for the Samuel. They're going to have to go in with the Arden, cause a little bit of disruption, allow the Samuel to hit level 2 first, and then try and invade right off the bat. That early play, the first couple plays of the game, are going to be so crucial to setting the tone and setting the pace.
Absolutely. We'll see if they can set the tone, if they can set the pace. It's time to get on into this game. Hashtag Vainglory8 on Twitter to let us know whether you're a Hammers fan or whether you're one of the Tribe. But it's time to get on into potentially the final game of the day. If Hammers can take it, they will be on through to the Vainglory8, but Tribe are going to take it to it.
Thank you very much, guys. And yeah, it could be potentially the last game here, AJ. But, Munch mentioned stalemate, and I'm not entirely sure if the teams know what that word actually means.
Somehow I think it's unlikely. That last game was a huge bloodbath. We're already seeing aggression in this one, Jazz.
Why not? Mixi going fairly low now. Has to actually pop a potion and starting all over. Did manage to take away that healing camp. Hollywood Hammers, they really, really want to make sure Tribe know their place in this game. And, well, like Bacon said, 4 ranged carries here for either team. Not either team, that could make 8. That's a ridiculous number. But 2 for each would make the correct amount. And now that's insane coming into this, because both these teams last time just head-to-head all the time. I want to see how Archaic's actually going to do on this Samuel, though.
Yeah, I think the Samuel pickup could be a make-or-break one, actually, for the side of Hammers. If Samuel is able to stay out of threat range of the Finn and, make it difficult for Mixi to get on the back line and apply pressure, sure, this could work really nicely. But at the same time, if he mispositions, if he doesn't have the reflex block at the right time, if he moves too close with his Drifting Dark to Mixi and Mixi just sonics into the backline, blows him up with some breaking point stacks, those are all situations where it doesn't work. So it really does require Archaic to play very smartly and very skilled. We'll see if he's able to do that. Hopefully Playboy Afro able to patch up any mistakes with a good Vanguard to give him the boost out of there, or in Gauntlet. Starting all over as well. He's on this Kestrel. This is an interesting pick. Definitely one that he's had some success on in the past. I think that it's a pick that can threaten something like a Celeste if you're very, very good with it, just because you can really make it difficult for them to know exactly where you're going to strike from, and you do a lot of damage up front. Doesn't really give Status a lot of time to set the fight up correctly with a core collapse or position appropriately. But at the same time, you don't have a lot of mobility. Core collapse is a big AoE. If you're not on the ball, starting over could have a very tough time here.
Speaking of status then, let's touch on this guy real quick. Last time, he picked up that Grumpjaw, he built Tension Bow, he built the Aftershock, he wanted to one-shot somebody through and through, and now he's on a completely different style of hero on this Celeste who loves to sit back, hit Heliogenesis over and over again. My worry is he's going to tap boots, run in there thinking he's Grumpjaw. But, that might happen. We're not sure. We'll have to wait and see. But how is he actually going to influence the team fights? Because, again, it's such a long-range matchup.
It is, but what you've got to think about is the team as a whole, although...
Hang on a second. Yes, I got a lot of trouble. Active camo was big. Mixi made it bigger, though. They did trade 1-for-1. Absolutely devastation now as Status comes back into the lane. Playboy Afro had to use those boots to get away. Luckily, Status doesn't have his available, at least lucky for Hammers.
that could have been a little bit better, obviously, if they were able to get the kill without starting dying, but it was close. They nearly made it happen. That was an incredible stun. Talking about the range here coming out of status, what you've got to think about when you're looking at Tribe's comp is not, all right, long range because 2 long range heroes. You got to think about what range they're actually effective in, right? And they actually have something for every range. They're a team that can really beat you no matter where you're sitting. Because Vox is pretty good when it comes to mid and short range combat. Celeste is pretty good at mid and long range combat. And Finn is really, really good at close range combat. Can also be effective in the mid range, and if you land a hook, great at the long range. So they can execute no matter where they're sitting. Even if status is far in the back, you know, he can still do things. And even if he's close, he can still just provide a stun to let Mixi start raining down some pain, potentially. We are seeing both teams coming towards the lane here. Very early for a Finn team to be wanting to fight. I think he's just here to protect his teammates. Although nice stun.
Collapse though. Playboy Afro has to play a little bit farther back now. However, that Drifting Dark is going to chunk Mixi down. And speaking of chunking him down, almost falls that Gauntlet. Almost coming down as well. I mean, that Fountain even just healing him up. I was going to say Crucible, then thought Gauntlet, and then I finally landed on the Fountain, but we got there in the end. Tribes gaming. Oh, nice core collapse again on Starting All Over. Nice Fountain as well coming out from Playboy Afro, healing them all up. Bloodbath indeed. Game number 2. It's already turning into a feisty one. Playboy Afro almost going onto turret. Oh my goodness. Archaic with the snipe onto status. Mixi running forward though, has got that 4 or 5 HP. Will he be able to chase down Starting All Over? He's going to get flared out. Playboy Afro and Archaic on the side here. Archaic, he wants the kills, he wants the fight. Everybody is so low. E36, bit too tanky on this Finn, and has polite company as well for the 4 to 5 HP. Only 1 kill going over to Hollywood Hammers there. Although, Starting All Over has found status, Core Collapse and Heliogenesis do miss, but Crystal Sentry is going to be there to back him up.
Every single player in this game is so bold. Like, what happened there was Starting going too deep. It was like, okay, bit much, mate. 1 more turret shot, you're dead. Then, freaking Mixi or whoever it was chases him, even though he nearly dies to Archaic. It's just crazy. It's craziness.
Don't understand what's going on. That was close. Starting All Over. Oh, my heart leapt a little bit. Almost went down to the solar flare. As soon as status hit 6, I was like, I'm going to go in. I'm going to pop it. Bam. Done. Almost took out Starting All Over. It is madness. It's absolutely insane what's going on. And it's a game that everybody kind of thought, you know what? They're just going to farm. They're just going to scale. They're going to get to the late game where they can blow up a single target, either of these teams. But both these teams have gone, nope, that's not our agenda today. We just want to fight no matter what level.
Finn's thing is that actually Starting All Over still has fantastic farm. He's hitting over 10 per minute at this point, which is pretty impressive when you're fighting this much and you've died already. On the other side, Mixi not quite hitting that same level of numbers, about 10 behind Starting. So he's missed a wave somewhere, perhaps earlier on when he had to be forced back because of the dive that was happening. The wave crashed into the turret and died. That's one thing which is really beneficial about being the aggressors in the early game. You do kind of...
That was a big quibble. Give me a second. Mixi gets sniped again. Gauntlet comes down as well. Oblivion is not going to sleep anybody. He's Starting All Over. It's underneath that turret. Beautiful stun onto status. But can he get away? He cannot. Double kill for Starting. Still tanking that turret. Aggro. 1 shot, 1 kill. Makes it the triple kill. Hollywood Hammers coming up, storming through this game. Tribe just look absolutely devastated. They're going to take this second turret as well, unless Mixi can say something about it.
Mixi made a real big misplay there when it came to his positioning. Went way too close to his opponents. You got to realize Glimmer Shots, Malice and Verdicts, they're very good at just taking you down at this point. Oh, Starting gets stunned up.
Thayers still wants this, and he can get it. He can have it with ease. Starting All Over ends up falling to a Solar Storm. Archaic does use those boots to get away. Same does Playboy Afro. Breaking point now finished up for Starting All Over. It's going to do a little bit more damage, but time and time again, it's not going to be a bloodbath like it was last game, AJ, but Status still wants to be in the front line.
Oh, for sure. And when you're chasing down people like Starting there who are very low health, you can probably afford to, especially if they're low energy. I mean, Starting could fire maybe 1 Glimmer Shot back at status, but 1 Glimmer Shot, not going to take someone down. 4, you could probably 100 to 0 them. So it's definitely a matter of status being very calculated there, saying, all right, I know I can get away with this. Not always something he's going to do. But still, yes, very back and forth game. We did see, of course, the turret being taken down by Hollywood Hammers earlier on. So they have pressure on the map. It's about whether or not they can execute on it. Now that E36 is level 6, that could be a little bit more challenging. You've got a forced core to contend with.
I want to see Echo coming out for E36. I know he's got it in him. He can do it. He can get the Echo for double forced accord, I believe. Well, maybe not in this game because of the double range, but we'll have to wait and see. Starting all over is very low, and still the raining down of Heliogenesis will continue. And now Tribe just looking to set up here to take this first turret for themselves. But Hammers, they have got the innate advantage with that Gauntlet being available to play by Afro.
Yeah, the Gauntlet does make it very difficult for Tribe to commit to pushing this turret. They really need status to just pressure it from out of range. Although here
Look at
comes
those Madison verdicts. Gauntlet is going to come down. Oblivion actually sees 2 targets here. Look at starting all over his positioning. Just dive straight on in there. That big silence does come through from Mixi. And now Hollywood Hammers are on the run. Mixi just dashing forward. Drifting Dark to heal up Archaic. Polite Company and the one-shot one-kill will come out. Nothing comes of it thus far. Tribe still rotating and retreating here. Hollywood Hammers, they got blinking health bars, but they still want to fight.
Yeah, the difference is Hollywood Hammers has resources to work with. That, energy, they can actually fight. Status really doesn't. So the big source of damage on the side of Tribe can't do anything, even though he can be protected quite effectively by the Finn. That being said, Mixi has life stealed up quite a lot. Maybe he can go aggressive. Hammers overextend here. I do think that was a nice attempt, though, by Tribe. Had Mixi been maybe one more item deep, that turnaround he made could have been all it took to win the fight. Similarly, had Status had more energy, E36 almost certainly would have gone for a forced cord towards the end there, while all of Hammers were lower health and gone for a kill. So this really shows you, all right, bit later in the game, Tribe's going to be looking really good. Because they do need, like, the Eve of Harvest, for example, on Status, to really spike and be able to fight in these extended fights properly.
Yeah, the Eve of Harvest is going to be quite pinnacle to his build. We'll see when he actually wants to actually pick it up, because at this point in the game, we are only 2,000 gold separating both these teams. We are 10 minutes in as well. With that gold miner being taken over to maybe Hammers, if they can take it here, will extend the gold lead, but it's 10 minutes in. There isn't enough gold in general to actually subsidize a lot of these builds. We'll have to wait and see what they want to do. Starting all over, taking chunks out of Status. Now E36 on the wrong side of the wall. Status taking so much damage. One shot, one kill. Will go a little bit wide, and then we'll leave Hammers maybe just to take up this gold miner eventually. Although E36 has found himself towards the front line. Hasn't got boots either. Has got Crucible and Fountain. Fortified HP comes from the B ability, but it's not going to be enough. That's going to be a big gauntlet as well. Mixi just gets soloed out completely there, just zoned off from the likes of Hammers. Starting all over, maybe looking for a little flank here. In fact, they're just going to go in. AJ, you're not allowed to speak just yet. Nice Heliogenesis onto Archaic. Oblivion is going to miss Status. There's going to be Mixi just shading up on here. Fountain's not going to be enough for Playboy Afro. Does end up just giving over his laner's life. Starting all over, ends up falling, and now it's going to long haul chase Playboy Afro down. Those Frostburns doing all too much. Mixi diving forward. Hang on a second, though. E36 almost takes him out. Status now chasing Archaic away, and he will eventually be able to get underneath his own turret.
You can see that Hammers has really improved from their time in the VG8 where they're struggling a little bit. I do think, though, that they need to start playing a bit more as a team. Like, Starting is making the call to go and get that flank, and he's not fully backed up, and then he kind of got outplayed as well. He didn't really land the skill shots he was looking for. But they are definitely starting to come together as a team. It's just not quite where I want it to be for them to consistently be making plays together, like someone like Team Solomon, for example. That being said, Tribe, really nice capitalizing on those mistakes from Hammers. That was a very nice disengage, a very nice kite. They played with the terrain in the jungle very effectively, and they also played with the expectations of their opponents very nicely. They're Starting all over had an expectation that they were going to try and group up, kite around the sentry. Surprise, Mixi is actually on the other side of that wall going back towards the base. I think it's perfectly reasonable for Starting all over to never predict that, because why wouldn't you fight on your sentry when you know you're getting pushed, right? You know that Starting all over is coming.
Next level mind games, that's what it is. Tribe, they're coming in to just contest this gold mine, and now nice core collapse onto 2 people. Heliogenesis rips through them. Solar Storm as well is going to execute one. Starting all over, bites the dust. That gold miner will go over to Tribe. You can imagine, unless the miracle still comes through, 300 gold each for the Tribe members, and they'll be very, very happy with that trade.
Yeah, that was a nice trade for them. Tribe definitely starting to build a lot of momentum off the back of the fight before that and picking up the gold miner there. Again, I want to see a bit more coordination out of Hammers. I think they've got the ability to make these fights work right now. They don't need to scale more, but they have to position effectively. They have to go for the right target. They have to work together. Currently, for example, let's take a look at some of the gauntlets from Playboy Afro. Very, very aggressive, right? You're leaving your teammates like a screen behind. You have to go together. You've got to be in good position. So, Hammers, again, still quite strong. In fact, the gold's still dead even, but it's all about how you execute the fights.
That's what it's going to come down to. How you actually engage them is the big pinnacle and critical point of these team fights. Playboy Afro has done a good job with the gauntlets thus far. Bolster cords are never really going to hit if they have vision of E36, so that's something to keep in mind. Now it is all on Hollywood Hammers. They have got the ability to siege as well, but again, the counter siege coming out from Tribe is massive there as well. It's really how the engage tool, I think, from Playboy Afro is actually used. Coupled that up with the Oblivion can make one devastating combo, but at the moment, Mixi overextending a little bit, starting all over, dodging out. It's going to have a hard time against Celeste, trying to actually just poke this turret down.
This isn't the way that you siege against Celeste, because starting's range is just lower. He can't get... Look at this. Like, every time he tries to move forward...
Oh, forced to gauntlet to two people. Hang on a second. I said it would never hit, and it does. Gauntlet is going to come down as well. Nice sleep onto Status. Just get out alive. Fountain's going to come out to heal him up. Big solar storm onto three members of Hollywood Hammers. They're going to have to back off. Mixi just refusing to let them go for free, though. Drifting dark away for Archaic will heal him up a fair bit. Now starting all over, misses the dodges out of the quibble, I should say. Mr. Deeg is just going to walk up to him and just completely go down. Mixi falls, E36 to follow. Hollywood Hammers, they're going to walk down this lane. Status can't do much. No energy, no HP, has to return to base.
I was already starting to think about what I wanted to break down after that fight about halfway through it, and I was about to make the point that I've never seen Starting Oliver miss so many glimmer shots. But then, he landed like 4 in a row that actually won them the fight. So, yeah, fair enough. You can't hit them all. That was critical, though. Had Starting Oliver continued to miss shots for that fight, because through the first half, I think he maybe hit one, specifically the first one, onto Status, which made me think they had the fight. It would have not been good. So, yeah. Really nice.
Oh my goodness, it happened. I wasn't going to say anything, but a resonance bounce just actually stole the Kraken.
Oh,
never in the history
That's
of
like 50 damage.
Oh,
it's like 50 damage at max rank. That
head
should
in my
not happen.
hands right now, AJ. Tribe Gaming steal the Kraken with a resonance bounce. One shot, one kill was coming out as well. You just need to tell your team to burst it. Just burst it down.
My God. They did. They used one shot to burst it down. They did it exactly right. It's just one of those things. It happens sometimes.
Oh, not in these programs. Core collapse on Starting all over. He's still trying to kite around. E36 activates the war treads to get a bit of distance. Here we go. Here's the fight. E36 on the front line. Gauntlet's going to get laid down bare. Mixi's going to block that one up nice and proper. Can they make anything else more happen? They need to just rotate down to this Kraken, though, because it is just chewing up their base. Hollywood Hammers, they may have lost the Kraken, but they have not lost the war. Mixi decides he wants to go in on this one. Beautiful solar storm actually on Starting all over. Those glimmer shots still raining down, but that's going to be 2 turrets for the price of a Kraken there over in the advantage of Tribe Gaming.
The thing is as well, you can't even say to Mixi, man, what a come on, he did not intend for that. He did not. He wasn't even attacking it with weapon. If you're a weapon and you're trying to steal it, you attack it, not something else, it's a bounce which got it, I think. So yeah, that was pretty gnarly. Mixi's got to be counting as lucky stars right now, though. He's got a few of them on his team with Status on that Celeste. Hammers, that's brutal. You've just made real strides. You've just picked up one of these fights that was so critical, the one we were talking about earlier on. It suddenly backfires immediately. That's the kind of thing which sends you overboard in some situations, tilt-wise. They are a team that used to have emotional, very emotional responses to a lot of these situations. We'd see Starting all over really just, fall apart in games that weren't going well. Let's see if he's worked on that enough here, because this is a game where he's going to be tried for it.
Look at his aggressive positioning. He's just autoing down Mixie at this point. Oblivion's going to come out. He's actually going to sleep one. This could be really critical. Look at his HP bar. It's going to go down. There comes the Gauntlet to separate them. One falls. Quibble on to starting all over, but E36 has got no damage to follow that up with. Mixie in a 1v1 with Archaic. Archaic just kites back. 1, 2, 3 auto attack finishes him off. Mixie still really low, trying to heal up on that poison shiv. E36 is going to get chased out as well, starting all over. He's got the Vanguard. The minions were chunking him out a fair bit though. Active camo does get activated. And now Playboy Afro is just going to get run down. Leave your support. Here we go. Starting all over goes in. Can he find the shots though? He needs to hit at least a couple. Active camo, son. Is it going to be enough? Goes into camo again. Trades 1 for 1. 2 supports left. Captain versus captain now. E36 and Playboy Afro a bit adieu to each other. That team fight was so crazy, but it ended up to 2 for 2.
Dude, you know what's really... Okay, so I actually really like the idea to go for the play, but you have to wait a little bit longer, and you have to go a little bit further back before you go in. The reason being that Polite Company reveals you from stealth, and I think Starting All Over might have forgotten that for like a split second. Then he realized, and he was like, oh no, this is going to go horribly wrong. It nearly did. At least they traded. But man, that's one of the most frustrating things if you're playing Kestrel in that situation. You're like trying to make a sneaky play happen. It's so easy for him to not even try, but just to reveal you.
He was like, hold my drink, boys. I'm going in. I've got a sneaky play with active camera. Oh, active nothing anymore. As I get... Oh, man. Polite Company, hell of an ability. Especially as it gives a fortified HP to all the tribe's members as well in these team fights. It stops a lot of that burst damage and burst potential that does come out from Starting All Over. Something that we haven't really touched on at all is the vision either. There's a lot of vision down with Hollywood Hammers now. You can see the scout traps littering the map. Tribe Gaming have none of the sort. They go traps. What are traps? We've only got flares.
All right, I'm just trying to think about how you really like break this game open if you're Hammers. I feel like maybe you just have to commit with a Gauntlet. Because the thing is, he really can't afford to like play around the edges of the fights. He's weapon. He doesn't have a long enough stealth. Gets revealed very easily by a lot of things, and on top of that, his range is just so much lower. Oh, here comes E36.
Oh, he's starting. Polite Company into the Quibble. 2-man stun. 3-man Oblivion is going to get blocked. Forced to Cord, block 2. Solar Storm 1 to 2. There we go. Gauntlet gets laid down. E36 in the front line. They need to get Mystique, though. Look at the back line. Mixie just running them down, but now he's isolated himself. Oh, lonesome is that Vox. Fountain to heal them all up. Status now just completely surrounded by 3 members of Hollywood Hammers. The stars are in the rise now, AJ, as I lost my words. An ace comes through for Hollywood Hammers, and they're just going to run it down the base, and they're going to run down that lane. Kraken still on the board for them as well for the taking. This game is again going in Hollywood Hammers' favors during the late game. Afro chunking up those turrets. This might just be the end. Are they just going to finish on this one?
I think they are, Jaws. Mixie went way too aggressive in the mid-stage of that fight. On top of that, no one was able to actually kill the damage threats whilst E36 was the main focus from Hammers.
One turret falls, 2 turret falls. They're just going to take the series. That crystal is going to crack. And there go Tribe. Their tribe has been disbanded, and the Hollywood Hammers have their star on the Hall of Fame, or the Walk of Fame, I should say. What a fantastically well-played game by them. Defeated Immortals, and now defeating Tribe, setting themselves up
to be
the rest
clear,
of the few days.
Both of these teams have more games to play. But I do think Hammers, they're in a great spot right now. They've already picked up 2 series in total, right? So really, really looking strong. They beat Immortals, one of the best teams in the entire challenge battles. Tribe, on the other hand, put up a good fight. I think things look optimistic for them in some of their other games. But at the same time, massive, massive props to Hammers. I don't think anyone saw this performance coming.
Hammers did a wonderful job, and 2-0s all round, and that will be us, or at least mine and AJ's time. And now at Munch, you guys can take that away to break down that last series.
Thank you very much, guys. Hammers managing to take it in the end. It's a 2-0 victory for them. Starting all over, having, honestly, a pretty terrible first season in the Vainglory, and then suddenly he's just come back for the challenge battles, and he has been on fire. Archaic as well, stepping up huge. The entire team, just phenomenal performance.
More wins in one day than they had in 4 weeks.
Very true.
Incredible stuff from Hammers. I mean, like you said, just absolutely stepping up in a big way. Maybe dropping into the challenge battles was like the kick in the pants
The
that they
wake-up
needed.
call, yeah.
You know, recognizing, hey, we can't go to Unified Live Champions. We can't get a chance to try and redeem ourselves if we don't make it through the challenge battles. And they definitely look quite motivated here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, talk me through how this went down, Dragon Ball, because this didn't feel quite the same as Game 1.
Well, there was, first of all, a lot of risk-taking here. High risk, high reward is the name of the game. Starting all over is a master at that. And, of course, just like we saw Archaic in Game 1 be the absolute hyper carry, Starting all over had to make a huge amount of plays. Now, sometimes that resulted in him, unfortunately, going down sooner because those risks didn't always pay off. But as we got into the near to the middle of the game, to the late of the game, Starting all over, we're able to sidestep those core collapses, those heliogenesis. So here we actually see Tribe, doing really well, trying to get this ace here. But as we got near to the mid game, this is where Starting all over really started to turn things on, and it became, really imperative here. Another solo storm, as I'm trying to talk about Starting all over, the late game. No doubt about it, Tribe played very well this series. Of course, their entire VG8 chance, or Vainglory 8 chance is on the line here. But Hammers turns it around. A lot riding on Starting all over right here. You see he does pick up the kill, gets the double kill. They don't find status, but they're able to push another turret. And we do see right here, this is a really cool play because this is the kind of risk reward we talk about. Starting all over, very close to dying, use that reflex block to get one more shot off, gets the kill, trades evenly. That kind of play just kept pushing Tribe further and further away from getting that lock in because they were kind of in the lead for a good chunk of that game.
Yeah, but it wasn't able to last in the end. And then once we got towards these very late team fights, Hammers started to run away with it.
Yeah, this was just really, really strong play at the end. And again, Mixi, a little bit too far forward. He's so far away from the rest of the team by the end of that play. Just is easily able to be isolated as a result, and Hammers taking advantage of the situation and able to close out the game off that. Again, decisive when they had the opportunity to actually end it.
And, I mean, I just want to quickly touch on the topic of this sudden resurgence from Hammers. Do we think, is there one thing, looking at their gameplay specifically, that we can see that they've tightened up? Is it, is their coordination better? Is it their rotations? Is it their drafts? What is it that has changed for them to go so kind of, night and day between an okay team and suddenly a great team again?
For me, it was Archaic just stepping up in a big way. I mean, this is a guy we haven't really seen much of anything from him or from Playboy Afro, but these two games, at least, that we saw, Archaic played out of his mind, especially game number 1. Game number 2, he didn't have quite the same scoreline because it was starting getting a lot of the kills, but they were all being set up by Archaic's play and the Samuel. But game 1 especially, that Koshka play was probably some of the best Koshka play we have seen in some time. Even, teams like TSM that have been running it or things like that, this Koshka play was better than what we have seen, in my personal opinion, from anyone else.
All right. Would you agree with that? Is Archaic really the difference maker right here?
Yeah, there's a big dominance in the jungle that plays in a factor of these teams' strengths. I mean, jungle really dictates the pace of the game right now. You want your laner to be strong. You want, especially for the late game, but early game, you can get that pressure from the jungler. It helps your rotations. You can move up and push the lane and push these objectives clear as well. So, yeah, absolutely. Archaic has done a complete 180 on his performance from at least a couple weeks prior for VG8. Very similar to his performance in week 1 against Nova, if you guys had caught that game. But that was really the only glimmer of performance improvement we saw from Archaic right at the start of the season. We really hadn't seen that Archaic show up until today.
Yeah, and show up he has. Now, it's time to take a look at our final standings at the end of day 1 of the Challenge Battles here in North America. There have been upsets galore. Rogue managing to get to a 4-0 scoreline after 2-0ing NRG off the stream. So NRG now having lost 2 series. Hammers also going to be on that 4-point scoreline, with Echo Fox and Immortals only having won 1 series so far today. So still, we've got 4 games to go, or is it 3 games? I can't actually count, but we have a few games to go tomorrow. But a lot of results there, not really what we were anticipating. And then in Europe, similar story. A lot of upsets coming out across the course of the day.
Yeah, unfortunately for a couple of these teams, their fates are already locked. Reliable Union and Tribe Gaming, both of them are guaranteed to not be in Vainglory 8 going forward into next split.
Yep.
Just very unfortunate situations for those teams, but I mean, they can still play spoiler tomorrow, and that's really all that they have. It's, I mean, a lot of teams, they still want that pride. They want to show, they want to go out with a bang, and if you can drag someone down with you, it feels all the better.
Yeah, and it's going to be all about the teams that are in the middle of the table tomorrow. That's what it's about. Any final thoughts on today? Things for the viewers to take away from today, looking towards the games tomorrow? Dragonborn, like, what is the feeling off of this?
Well, you definitely can't go by, initial assumptions on these team strengths.
Yeah.
You really have to understand that coming into today, we are seeing these teams play at a different level, the different intensity across the board, and we're seeing, what we thought were favorites struggle a little bit, and teams that we weren't expecting a lot from have actually really come into themselves here. We saw it, of course, with Avalanche in Europe, and we've seen it with Hammers today. Hammers more so. Some of these teams that really weren't performing Vainglory 8 are today, so a lot of upsets probably in store.
All right, Bacon, any final thoughts?
First of all, I can't wait to go watch the Hammers Immortals matchup, but I want to see how Immortals are going to rebound off of that tomorrow. I mean, this is a team, this is their first series loss since coming together with this roster, and it's always interesting to me to see how teams react after that first loss, how they come back, if they come back strong, if it has shaken them to their core, who knows what it's going to be. I just can't wait to see who's going to be in Vainglory 8 for Split 2.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting day tomorrow. We'll be starting off at the exact same time for Europe and the exact same time for North America as well. A lot on the line for both regions. We're going to be deciding our Vainglory 8 teams tomorrow, so make sure to tune in. But from all of us here, it's going to be good night, and we will see you in a few hours' time.